All right. We are close enough to 11. In fact, it's going to give us a little time to get this stream with Instagram. Now, I need to verify whether... Ooh. Sorry, I just had a refurb. Oh, it was through Instagram. Interesting. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear that echo happening. Unbelievable. So I don't know if it's putting it in a bank on Instagram or in fact if it's streaming somewhere on Instagram live. That's something I have yet to verify, but it looks like the uploads and streams happen on Facebook, Rumble, and Instagram. And if you happen to be on Instagram or Facebook, I'm telling you, and you have yet to experience Rumble, get on over, check out Rumble. It's free, set up just like YouTube. You can access it like free without getting the app. However, you can't engage until you build an account. So build your account. It's free. That way it's just ruling out bots from spamming profiles, and that way you could follow individuals, like, and also participate in the comments. Okay. That being said, welcome to Unmuzzled Chat. I don't know about this jingle, but I got to upload other ones. But it's obviously tricky. You got to put some time and energy and effort to ensure you're not infringing on any copyrights. But that's not what we're here to talk about, folks. We're here to go over that other half. It's actually a little more than half. That was a long interview, but every minute was so powerful. And even though we went over some pretty powerful stuff before, this is even going to be, dare I say, more informative, and they just dropped some bombs. Now, we had some streaming issues yesterday, more than I would like, and I want to apologize. I'm doing the best I can with the gear and everything and the setup. I've invested as much as I can at this point. I just don't have any more funds to put towards things. So if you're feeling charitable, we got direct GoFundMe, Cash App, even a Buy Me a Coffee and a GoFundMe. But anyways, so I relocated camp today, and the Starlink is showing numbers that I've never seen before. So fingers crossed that we have our first stream entirely non-disrupted. But I do get that if it jumps from one satellite to the other, we may deal with a second lag. Who knows? But bear with us, and it will iron itself out. Hopefully, right? That's the plan. Now, intention for this episode. I want us to gain proper information, knowledge, education, so we can protect ourselves. We can protect our loved ones and our family members, and it is crucial. I don't understand how we all have been guilty, and it's not, I don't mean guilty in a sense to make you feel bad about things. We've all fallen prey to evil's tactics one way or another. It's been very effective with its manipulation campaign and for generations now. And we can't allow their talking points to pit us against each other, polarize topics to where we can't question things, because that is the most important thing. Like, if we get anything out of this episode, is that it's healthy to question things. In fact, we must question things, and we must do our research and not just take some talking points, and kind of keep an open mind to just everything. They're about to go over it, but a couple of things that were just out the gate. I mean, this is stuff Callie just talked on, how companies are merging. The ones directly known to cause disease, they are merging with medical companies that have been treating the disease. What are we going to do about that? That is not to our benefit. We shouldn't allow that to happen. And as they put, it's a revolving door. Create the illness, treat the illness, and they get the funds to effectively hide the actual science that tells us all the truth as to what is happening. This is legitimately going on with the majority of these food companies. I mean, the way they're even infiltrating farming and all markets, it's downright scary. I do not understand as to, well, it's uneducated and people aren't doing the research. And I'm sitting here scratching my head. Why? I guess people don't know how actual threatening it is to them and their families as to why they're not wanting to do their research. I don't get that because the writing's been on the wall for a long time now. Now, don't get me wrong. Unmuzzled Chat family, I know you hear me and I'm with you. And yes, it's frustrating to an extent, but the reality of it is like we need them, right, to create the proper momentum. But even more important than that, we want to see others well. And if we can get better at laying out our intentions and acting out of love for other individuals, especially regarding their health, I mean, this very well could open doors into having conversations on even more polarizing topics such as political leanings. So we all have a lot to work to do. None of us have arrived, and we should be excited. And I'm just so grateful for this moment. Let me express my gratitude to God. All glory to God for my healing of the bioweapon Lyme disease. I'm not entirely out of the woods, but I feel stronger in ways each and every day. I feel like I'm on the right path. And he's put me on, and I'm just handing it over more and more to him. And as I'm doing that, there's just more and more peace. There seems to be more and more blessings, even amongst the challenges. So, and if if you haven't looked at, been following for a while now, this is not something I've acquired and walked with my whole life. This is more so new. Okay. I more so for the majority of my life had that door closed to God, and that was to my own detriment. Everything else in this life will let you down. And we like to pin things on God, but it's to our own detriment. And until we like really put in the work and seek him from a level of humility and meekness, like you just I don't know, maybe he'll still express his love to you in other ways, but that's when the real breakthrough for me happened. And my goodness, I just wish that on everyone. All right. Now I can't mess around. We got to jump to it because there's quite a bit to go over in this interview, and it is so powerful. So once again, my hats off to Callie, Casey, and Tucker. Fantastic work. And I just can't say enough good things about them. All right. Let's get that screen share going. Now they were in the midst of talking about their mother that unfortunately is no longer with us, but it sounds like their mother took Western medicine and the doctors like to the T, just followed all their advice all the way essentially to the grave. And it's very unfortunate. But these siblings are sharing all of this knowledge from becoming a doctor, all this knowledge from indoctrination, all this knowledge from their own parent, that the system failed, and we can learn from that. And it's like doing her mother, what would you say, like justice to an extent, honoring her by saving other lives. And this is nothing short of life or death. So my question to all of you, and it should be to everyone, like, do you value your existence? Do you value your health? Do you want to become the best version of you while you're here in this finite amount of time that we are gifted, and fulfill your purpose, your unique purpose? And we all have a role to play. I'm telling you, on this stage, to this level. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been born in this time. You would have been born in a time where it wasn't needed, where we weren't at 5th generation warfare. So personally, I feel there is a warrior within everyone if they choose to really open their eyes in a sense to, because 5th generation warfare, you can't ignore that we're and basically live a life like we're not at war, because war's being waged on the men, women, and children of this country and across the world. So it's time to acknowledge that, and it's time to freaking just buck up. And if that seems a little too daunting, then obviously you got to up your health, because no one in their right mind would run away and allow more tyranny or align with tyranny. That goes to show even deeper rooted issues. Anyway, getting to myself, let's go ahead and, oh, it was full screen. I apologize. Let's get this rock and rolling. Appreciate all of you.
And this book is dedicated to her. And, I think my mom, she's sort of the archetypal American patient, and she's someone who was totally faithful to the American healthcare system. And like so many other Americans, was ultimately completely let down by it. She passed away far too early, after 40 years of completely missed warning signs of the root causes of all the different symptoms and conditions she was racking up. So, she had me when she was 40. I was a humongous baby born at Sibley Hospital. I was almost 12 pounds. Callie was almost 12 pounds. And that's a huge baby. And, there's actually a term for a baby over 8.5 pounds, which is fetal macrosomia, which portends metabolic issues in a mother and metabolic issues in the baby. And I had them. I was 210 pounds by the time I was in 8th grade, and my mom had trouble losing the baby weight, had a very tough menopause, in her 60s, got all the American diagnoses: high cholesterol, they gave her a statin; high blood pressure, they gave her an ACE inhibitor; high blood sugar, they gave her metformin. Oh, this is normal. It's a rite of passage. Every American's getting these diseases. So she went to all the specialists. She went to the cardiologist and the endocrinologist and her primary care doctor, got all these medications. And then, she's 72 years old, doing everything the doctors are telling her to do, taking the pills every single day. And she gets a diagnosis of, she had some belly pain one day, went to the doctor. It lasted for a few weeks. She got a CT scan, stage 4 widely metastatic pancreatic cancer. She was dead 13 days later. Ugh. And she was seen at the best hospitals in the country. She was getting executive physicals at Mayo. She was being seen at Stanford and Palo Alto Medical Foundation. And they looked at us in the eye, they looked at us after her death and said, "Oh my God, this is so unlucky."
No, it's not.
And I knew enough at that time to know there was nothing unlucky about this. This was an entirely predictable sequence of events from the age of 40 to the age of 72.
And she had, as you've suggested, I think, every possible advantage. Like, clearly, high-functioning person who followed the guidance, had the means to do it, had a daughter with specialty knowledge, a physician daughter. So, like, she had every possible advantage.
Did every single thing.
Man, let's grasp that. Western medicine has failed us, and it's been infiltrated just like everything else in this country, like education systems. our government, businesses, and that's why the health portion of it all is just so freaking crucial. Because how are we going to fix the political corruption if we're all sickly? You know, how are we going to fix the education system when not enough of us have the ability to show up because we're just being squeezed and we don't have the additional bandwidth? Health and wellness is key for all of us, even to follow our intuition and fall into our purpose here, which I would venture to say more men and Americans would acknowledge that this is a wartime, and they'd realize, wow, my business and my job could potentially all be for naught if I don't start getting engaged now. My own family is going to be more so poisoned, indoctrinated with education and then tyranny through the government and then taxed to know, and then we'll own nothing and be happy. They've literally been ramping it up to just break the patriotic backbone of this country. I mean, this current administration, it's no secret. They've lost trust of the American people to an extent that they had to evoke and plan and coordinate through NGOs and all this money, a freaking invasion of this country. And Tucker exposed on another amazing episode. I think it was just him actually speaking out on the facts. The biggest gap between a presidential election was 17 million. The biggest gap in votes was 17 million. We know, guaranteed, they've exceeded that number. I feel comfortable saying over 30 million. I've heard in excess of 40 million, but still, it's well over the 17 million, and that's the largest gap. So, golly, if that seems heavy, it's kind of heavy, but none of us is showing up enough on a state level to make the difference with the Dominion machines, getting those out of there because they're connecting. There's algorithmic, and that's issue, and then mail-in ballots and 2,000 mules and stuffing ballot boxes. We literally need to go. We need to have identification, so ID, and just paper ballot and count. We need to get back to that, and I feel every facility should be recorded on a 24-hour loop that the whole public can access that recording live and after the fact. And at any of those locations, a single security system goes down or a camera goes down, an investigation is necessary. Period. No questions asked. And if any party stands against that, oh, this is the safest election ever, you're an election denier or whatever, it's like, what? You're insane for saying that anyways. But once again, evil weaponizing topics. It's the great equalizer of this country, and anyone that values their freedom would, in fact, if there's any stink to the election, it's not even a question. Full-blown audit, full-blown investigations, and anyone that gets in the way of that, full-blown investigation on them. I don't care who they are. Political, position, business, red flag, you're now audited. Anyway, I'm getting way beside the point, but I just want to ramp up the pressure on what we're going over here, because this, my friends, is everything. It's everything. Sorry. I think there was another point there and I totally missed it because I just go off on my own things. let's get back to the episode.
Thing they said, and died at 72 in the prime of her life, from conditions that were on the exact same spectrum. So every condition I mentioned earlier in this episode and every condition she had are on this metabolic disease spectrum.
So you believe, pancreatic cancer specifically, if my memory serves, and I think it does, was kind of an unusual, it was always famously dangerous, deadly.
Skyrocketing.
I have noticed, like, all of a sudden, people
What are the risk factors?
Gyro.
Obesity, diabetes, smoking. It is fundamentally a lifestyle disease.
pancreatic
Why
cancer
it is going up.
So is breast cancer.
Breast cancer. I mean, breast cancer is now 1 in 8 women. This is an estrogen, often an
It's a
estrogen.
foodborne illness.
So is breast cancer. Food-borne illness. What are we doing? We need to be more accountable. They have sold us a bill of convenience, and it isn't convenient. Don't fool yourself that the Walmart market, because it's so close, is what's convenient when it leads to illness and cancers and death. There's nothing convenient about that. And it hinders your neurological function, your energy levels, your everything, and then inevitably your bank account because, doctors and then pills. And if you're going the wrong route about it, our bodies are very resilient. I've learned that with Lyme disease, so we can feed it the nutrition it needs to heal itself. Even if there's a lot of folks I know that have beat cancer mainly through diet, detox, some IVs and certain things, but just making basically their human biology, if you will, their habitat, not a habitat cancer could thrive in. And the body just beats it. Anyway.
Estrogen-driven cancer. Well, where are all these extra estrogen coming from? Maybe it's the 6 billion pounds of pesticides that are being invisibly sprayed on all of our food.
6 billion pounds. Listen to this. They're so educated.
And poisoning it. And what are these pesticides doing? They're estrogen receptor agonists. Interesting.
Wow.
Being sold to us from China and from Germany,
Which they're not using in their food there.
Illegal.
So what is that?
Which they're not using in their food there, but they're selling it to us. Why are we allowing that? All of our organizations have obviously been corrupted. They're not acting out on the best interests of we the people. They're taking side monies. Once again, isn't it starting to make sense? All these positions of power, people go in with, just normal salaries, but they come out these multimillionaires. Doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure the science is clear because I don't really understand it. It's the effects of these chemicals on food is what?
So the ostensibly these chemicals are being used 6 billion pounds globally per year because of pest control. They're also being used on our children's parks and golf courses and all over the place. They're invisible, they're tasteless, and they are directly toxic to our cellular biology. So they're pesticides. Side is the word for the act of killing. So herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. And they are so toxic that 20% of all suicides globally are performed by drinking pesticides.
I didn't know that. 20% of suicides globally are due to drinking that stuff. Clearly, that's a horrific stat, but it proves how damning this stuff is. And our kids' playgrounds and our food, billions of pounds. What are we doing?
And yet we're told by our government that they're totally safe. There's
Right.
this one will shock you. But you look at, the largest merger ever done in Germany was Bayer Monsanto, where Bayer which is a pharmaceutical company, merged with Monsanto, which is an agrochemical company in the United States. If you look at what Bayer makes, they make cancer drugs for things like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And if you look at what Monsanto makes, which is Roundup, which is the most widely used pesticide in America, the cancer that it causes is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They paid out $11 billion in the past couple of years for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cases. So the companies are merging that are directly known to cause the disease with a medical company that has a treatment for the disease. Like, this is very, very dark.
Evil.
And so like Callie said, it's kind of this revolving door between create the illness, treat the illness, and hide the science that tells us what's happening.
But this is all result of the food industry wanting food cheaper. And we spend per capita half as much on food as they do in Europe. But we spend...
Is it though? Is it, buddy? Do you know that for a fact? Is it just because they want it cheaper? Or are there... It seems too convenient to align with the Rothschilds Manifesto, Bill Gates talking about healthcare and depopulation through vaccination, and the Georgia Guidestones talking about maintaining a world population of 500 million, which would mean the genocide of 7.5 billion people. So is it, buddy? Is it? Do you know that for sure? Sorry, I love you, man. We got to push back on that.
Spend 3 times more per capita on healthcare. So my big point to everyone is this is not the free market at work. This is food companies lobbying to have neurotoxins and endocrine disrupting chemicals on our food that are toxic, that aren't allowed on any other food in any other developed country, in order to make food a lot cheaper.
It's more than that. It's more than that. I mean, even how his sister was talking about the actual doctor, all this estrogen being pumped in, and women having earlier, 6 years earlier, like puberty, than historically. Like, that's a big deal. And with the testosterone taking, things of that nature, couldn't it be leading into more of their woke poisonous ideology too? So they become so effective. Like, it isn't just, sure, there's probably some truth to what you're touching on there on cheaper, but it seems like multiple birds with one stone, in a sense, where you see where I'm going with it, but it actually provides a potential way out for those that are like, you know what? I mean, my heart goes out to those individuals that, I mean, naturally we long to be liked in part of a community, sense of a community. So when you start feeling off or wired unnaturally, then naturally you're going to migrate to those other kind of toxic communities. But if we were more informed and educated, then those individuals that were like, versus just going with this wave, what's trending, like realizing, whoa, this is going against basic human biology a bit, start acknowledging these type of things, you actually have a potential way out of even thinking that way or feeling that way, just from addressing things on the health spectrum side of it all. Because I don't care what they say, men can't give birth, men can't produce babies, men can't. It's so disgusting to even think of the verbiage they're using. Breastfeed, chest feed, like, disgusting. No, that is unnatural. And I even find that borderline, what shall we say, child abuse.
And then to your point about, what do these chemicals do? It increases estrogen. And these kids are inhaling hormone disrupting chemicals. So
and now
the New York Times recently had a front page article that puberty rates, particularly among women in the United States, are plummeting. People are hitting puberty years younger. Girls are hitting puberty.
Young?
The average girl in America is hitting puberty, which is sexual maturity, 6 years earlier than they were in 1900. We have the earliest puberty rates of any continent in the world. It's age 10.
We have the lowest percentage in the world. Doesn't that show that 100% correlates to what we're being fed? They're honing in on it. It isn't, sure, there's some other things that we need to address as well. But wow, this is so huge. We really need to get this message out. Once again, if it's with Unmuzzled chat, with my input, thank you. But if it's even, you want to cut me out and just send the direct link to this, it's in the episode. Share. We must get this out because it's all about helping others and having the outcome.
And 10 to 13. And this is in large part thought to do because of we're literally giving children estrogen with all the plastics we're ingesting, which are xenoestrogens, meaning they are exogenous artificial estrogens, and the pesticides, which can activate the estrogen receptors like atrazine. I mean, you can put atrazine, which is a pesticide that we spray about 70 million pounds of in the US every year. It's not legal in Europe, but it's sold to us from international countries.
It's not legal in Europe?
No, you cannot use it. And you put this on a developing male frog embryo and it turns into a female frog. That's how much of an estrogen or an endocrine disrupting chemical that it is.
Boom. Doesn't that start to make a lot of sense with the shenanigans and some woke movements? So to that man's point, he wanted to say because it was cheaper. But it can't be sheer coincidence that it's having that type of impact on a human biological level. At the same time, whoa, that's cute, cracking my voice. At the same time that they're pushing this LG alphabet, whatever, mafia, just toxic, poisonous ideology. Right? There's no convenience to these things. It's intentionally being done. Mar goes out to those that are falling prey to it and they're not finding the effective ways out. And we got to get better at communicating with said individuals to open their minds, open their hearts, and into the possibilities. What's actually going on, because it's abnormal. It's not normal. Normal, man and woman, and it's only through men and women that we can procreate, and that's a miracle, and that's beautiful. That is getting back to the root of meaning and purpose and a life worth living. Got to get back to that. Evil has effectively demonized and attacked and threatened the nuclear family. And it's been very destructive. And we got to combat that. We should be excited to do so.
And so these chemicals are not inert. And again, because we can cherry pick science, and so much of these these papers are PR papers paid for by industry. The Monsanto papers was a huge thing that, revelation. They had to declassify these documents that Monsanto had basically ghostwritten scientific papers to say that these chemicals are safe.
But can I just ask an obvious question? So the incidence of transgenderism, or whatever we're calling it, have, skyrocket, thousands of % increase in the last 10 years.
Right.
And there are many threads to this. It's partly a political movement, social movement, but you sort of wonder if it's not also a biological response
I
to
forgot you mentioned that.
these chemicals? Is that
I'll say
possible?
I'll say this just as a demonstrable fact: our child's environment is to an unprecedented degree full of hormone disrupting chemicals. The assault on a child's cells and hormones is unrelenting right now.
Unrelenting.
Wow.
And their bodies are small. They can't handle it. So you take a child and you put them on a screen for the average kid is using a screen 7 hours a day. Okay. And so this is hitting their dopamine. So that's one input. We're eating a credit card's worth of plastic per week, right? And these are hormone disrupting chemicals. All of our
How
food
are we
is
eating?
I thought it was a year. Credit card of plastic. Wow. Per week. See, we got to know these facts. You can't just sweep them under the rug because it just ramps it up. Like even these BPA free bottles, when this gets nuked, like it's in the sun and it's even warm, I pour it out. I don't mess with it. And that's why I like going to, glass. Glass is what's up. I also have like stainless steel canteen sinks of that nature. But the more you can minimize all those plastics and certain cookwares and utensils and just everything. I mean, bottled water is like, get out of here. Cut that out long time ago. And as I'm out here traveling, I thought about if I had a bigger kitchen to where I could put like a mini RO or something, hook up to the sink, I probably would go that route, but I just don't have the room. So I have a Berkey filter up on this ledge. So I'm putting the water through that, which is a stainless steel and with the charcoal and silver infused, filtration. I've even heard that receipts have a real high level of BPA and we absorb a lot through the skin. So not to be afraid to grab receipts, but I've grown to habit like to not sit there and, be holding and playing with it and put it where I need to go and even wipe my hand real quick. We got to learn. And it takes a community, doesn't it? Because I know there's a lot. Sorry, let's get back to it.
Plastic in that volume.
Well, plastics are in everything now. They're in our air. There are nanoparticles of plastic in the air we're breathing. They're in our water.
Air, by the way, yes, they've found it. I've watched documentaries about chemtrails where, aluminum, barium, all sorts of harmful things, but microplastics. And the thing is, naturally, they can't even get thousands of feet up or into the stratosphere, but that's where they went up, changed filters, put in a new filter system. I mean, they had a specially designed exterior mounted like catch kind of nozzle, and then they realized with like HEPA filters and they realized, well, shoot, we actually have a really good in-cabin air filter system. We'll just ramp up and start doing more tests with that. So anyway, they would find these things all the way up in the stratosphere. So it naturally can't even be there. So they're spraying us with these things. And Tennessee put a ban on chemtrails and geoengineering. And sure enough, the streaks in the sky went away. We must all get so loud in each of our states to shut this down. But until people get educated, look back some episodes. We touch on it multiple times, chemtrails. One of the go-tos on Rumble, it's called Franken Skies. That one's a pretty good documentary, but just even simply searching chemtrails and watch away. Educate yourself. It's key. Knowledge is good. Ignorance is evil.
They're covering every piece of food that we buy in the grocery store. You go to Europe, all the vegetables are just, They're just in these free markets, they're not packaged. In the US, you go to Trader Joe's, every single piece of food is covered in plastic.
Right.
You've got the plastic water bottles. Every single can that we drink in the United States is lined with a plastic coating. Yeah. Every single one. Wow. It's all getting in. And this can actually directly disrupt our mitochondrial function, which is the...
You know what? I didn't know that. Every single can is lined with plastic. I was not aware of that. I'm not going to lie. I do need to cut out these dang freaking energy drinks. I'm going to do it. The
metabolic machinery of the cell. So microplastics actually can disrupt the way we make energy in the body. And we know that metabolic issues are the root cause of every chronic illness facing Americans today. You can't make this up, And then you have there's many effects of these things, but endocrine disrupting and mitochondrial disruption are two of the really big ones. Then you've got the kids eating 70% of their calories that a child is eating today is from a factory, industrially manufactured, ultra-processed foods. We know that these foods are destroying our cellular biology. So it's really, and with school start times, kids are not getting enough sleep. So across sleep, across movement, the average kid is spending less time outdoors than a prisoner in America right now.
What? The average kid is spending less time outside than a prisoner? That is hard to believe, especially like my upbringing. I'm out here in the wilderness right now because I want to recenter. I want to become the best version of myself to serve you better. That's why I've relocated camp, and I'm ecstatic. I have yet to, I don't think we've had a disruption yet, but this is natural. This city living, that is relatively new, very new. The manufacturing, that's really, really new. And we can see, are we going to allow it to get worse before we step up in? But it's even bigger than that, because if we don't address these things right now, I have a feeling if we don't rule out the corruption, it will lead to we don't have a choice. And that's where we got to stand strong, kind of over our dead bodies. Like, no, we value our freedom, and everything you're doing is wrong. Like, we're getting involved. We can't allow it to get to that point where we lose our choice and freedom. We are nearing that. We are on a knife's edge. Which way are we going to go?
Like, kids are not going outside. We're not getting the sunshine. Our circadian rhythms are destroyed. So every level of society, public school start times are disrupting our food, our nutrients, our sleep, our stress and dopamine, our movement patterns, and our toxins. And we are getting destroyed.
And this is the visible hand. And we just have to understand this when we're thinking about healthcare policy. There's nothing more profitable than a sick child, as I said, or really hijacking a kid's dopamine, right? Think about the trillions of dollars that are generated from a child's dopamine being hacked, being on that phone all day. It's neither good nor bad necessarily. It's just an economic fact. There's a huge incentive for that kid to be, their chronic stress to be just triggered nonstop on that phone. There's huge profit for a child to be addicted to ultra-processed food and continuing to demand from their parents that food. There's huge incentive for a child to be sick and getting on the statins, which are doubled in prescription rates in high schools in the past 10 years, to get on the SSRIs that are now handed out like candy in high schools, to get on the metformin, to get on the Ozempic, which is now being recommended. They're pushing for 6 years old and up for if your child is overweight, lifetime prescription Ozempic. That's very profitable. So you have basically the free market at work. I think capitalism is the greatest invention in human history. But just looking agnostically at the incentives, it's as many pills as we can give that kid, as much we can keep that kid in fear, as much as we can keep that kid sick without dying right away. That's what's fueling the largest industries in the country.
Most of us, well, actually all of us, go through our daily life.
We can't allow, we got to change the whole infrastructure. 100%. I'm excited to do my part. How about you?
Using all sorts of other weather program, and now we're partners with them.
Let's find the end of this commercial. Oh, that was it right there.
Yes, there's so many. This could go on 10 hours.
Yes, it could.
Let's just stop with Ozempic really quick, because Ozempic, and you and I had a pretty remarkable conversation about Ozempic. And at the end of it, I thought, well, that's never going to be popular because that's kind of terrifying. I was wrong as usual. And now it is ubiquitous. Kids are taking it. College students are taking it. As a physician, what's your view of Ozempic?
You know what? I'm going to cut them off right there, and I'm going to do a call to action. Tucker actually recently had a guest on that they ended up talking about how easy, I guess, it was to get in touch with Tucker. And his guest even said, yeah, you'd basically be a dum-dum if you couldn't figure it out. He used more intelligent words than that, but you get the point. Well, I've reached out to his team. I haven't gotten anything. So I freaking love Tucker Carlson. And I'd love to get on that platform and talk about my experience with Lyme disease and biological warfare. It threatens us all. And it's amazing that he had Chris Newby on recently. Amazing episode. Be sure to check that out. But this is where, I'm calling on Unmuzzled Chat fam. If you have any bright ideas, if you figure it out, please DM me on any of the social medias or simply email me, unmuzzledchat@gmail.com. I'd love to even talk to you over the phone about it and try to strategize. And that goes not just for Tucker, a bunch of these patriots. But since we're with Tucker right now, he's doing such a great job. I'd love to sound the bullhorn further because I know there's so many that don't know they even have Lyme. It is a true epidemic, and we must up awareness because that could be the root of many Americans' issues. You could only move the needle so far without a proper diagnosis, and really, at this point, unfortunately, kind of exhausting a lot of options to really hone in on what works for you. But knowing is very important.
I think it's very dark. I think it's a stranglehold on the U.S. population, almost like solidifying this idea that there is a magic pill. Literally, the book by Johann Ari is called Magic Pill, and convincing us that salvation from our chronic health issues is going to be found in a shot when we are living in a toxic stew that's destroying our cellular biology. It's, of course, for certain patients, taking GLP-1 agonists is going to be helpful for their conditions. It might jumpstart their way to getting back to health.
Is that the name of the active drug?
GLP-1 agonists. Yeah. So GLP-1.
Sorry, not fluent in this.
No. It's that's what the medications are. And so they're basically stimulating a hormone that's made in our digestive system that cues satiety and does many other things. And so,
satiety is
making us feel full. Making us, and what's so interesting, like we are, like Callie said earlier, like we are the only species in the world that has an obesity and chronic disease epidemic. The only species in the world that has a chronic disease and obesity epidemic because of ultra-processed food. You think about every other animal in the wild, they're eating real natural foods, except for domesticated animals, which are also getting chronic diseases just like humans because they're eating our food. Yeah. But every other animal, they're able to regulate their satiety. They're not eating themselves to death like we are. We're literally eating ourselves to death. The reason is because these foods, like Callie talked about with the cigarette companies and the scientists moving to create addictive ultra-processed foods, they are designed to subvert our satiety mechanisms like GLP-1 secretion so that we never know that we're full. But if we were eating whole, real food, we would cue the exquisite satiety mechanisms in our bodies and we would not overeat. If you're eating real, whole, unprocessed, nutrient-rich foods, we have receptors in our gut that make us feel full. It's not rocket science.
Can't. If you eat just protein, which is hard.
You can't overeat.
You cannot overeat.
No, that's right.
You can't eat too much steak. It's not even possible.
And think about
I could even attest to that. Doing the majority of a carnivore diet, dare I say, I'm not even eating enough. I've lost some muscle mass, but like for once, that stubborn belly fat and like my face is the first thing to plump up as I try bulking or anything, and it's all thinning up. So yes, they're right. I could testify
about this. It's incredible if you can convince people that this is not true, and defy the entire animal kingdom, what's happening with every other animal. This could be on track to be the most profitable medication ever in human history. It will be if the powers that be let it. And the unfortunate part is that it doesn't take our bodies out of the toxic stew that's crushing our biology. Yes, we may melt some fat, but we're essentially creating starvation to melt fat and muscle without changing any of the other levers that we just talked about that are crushing our biology. So this is not the public health solution. You look at what's happening though.
Do you think there are potential downsides to it?
I mean, every medication has downsides.
Wow.
And this one has well-known side effects. It disproportionately causes us to lose muscle mass, which creates frailty, which is one of the things that can cause old people in old age to have very poor quality of life and early death. It has a higher rate of thyroid cancer. It has
to get away
risks
from
on the label
drugs.
of kidney dysfunction, of pancreatitis, of all sorts of things. Every medication has side effects. So if we're going to mass prescribe this, so there's a bill right now in Congress, HR 4818, which is the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act. And, you look at this and you think, oh, this is great. The government's focusing more on obesity and this is awesome. There's one line that all that matters in that, which is that they want to expand Medicare access to include coverage for these for obesity medications, which are these drugs, for people that include overweight and obese. That is 74% of the American population. If this bill goes through and everyone who is eligible for this drug gets it paid by taxpayers, that will represent over $3 trillion per year in drugs to the American people without changing any of the root causes of what is making us sick. And to add insult to injury, this will be taxpayer money being largely funneled to Europe.
That is unacceptable. To Europe? This isn't good.
Who makes the drug. So people need
which
to
they don't
wake
prescribe.
up.
It's 10 times less expensive, and it's not the standard of care in Norway when you are obese.
Is that where it's made?
Yeah.
Novo Nordisk.
Yeah, there's a step ladder, and you get the keto diet and exercise incentivized from the government.
In the country that makes Ozempic.
And the American Academy of Pediatrics in their most recent obesity guidelines are recommending these drugs for kids as young as 12.
And pushing for 6.
This is a lifelong medication at the cost of about $1,500 a month with many side effects that does not change any of the root causes issues that are toxifying, literally destroying our brains and bodies.
Can I ask, I mean, as you've said 3 times, and then I hope you'll say it 3 more, every drug has side effects. But they seem like intentionally downplayed in a lot of cases.
Right.
Most famously with certain COVID-related medicines, but there are others where they just don't really want to talk about. Doctors don't seem to want to talk about the potential side effects. Why is that?
Because if you have an obese patient,
weird.
Okay, so let me just paint the picture. They're pushing for 6, obese or overweight.
6 years old.
Yeah. So we have obviously an obesity crisis among 6-year-olds right now in the country. In Japan, the child obesity rate is 3%. In the United States, 50%
This is uniquely American.
50% of teens are overweight or obese. So let's just look at that, right? We're clearly just force feeding into our children toxic food that's causing this massive issue. And now any parent watching, particularly lower income, because this bill is pushing for Medicaid. So if you're a lower income, so why are they lobbying? Why is this company in Scandinavia one of the 5 largest lobbying spenders in America and pushing so hard for this? And why is the stock so high and it's the 12th most valuable company in the world?
Wow.
They're expecting 80 to 90% of their profits from the United States, from the government, by rigging the institution. What institution are pharma companies rigging? They're actually rigging Medicaid. They're actually profiting off poor people. Medicaid is spending more on mitochondrial dysfunction than the entire U.S. defense budget, and growing much faster. Right? This is a
mitochondrial dysfunction.
Various metabolic
issues
this
tied
core
to
cellular dysfunction.
diabetes. We're spending on Medicaid more on preventable metabolic chronic conditions than the defense budget. And Medicaid's one of the fastest growing items in the budget. That's all rigged by pharma as a piggy bank. So this bill, if you put Ozempic on that schedule, then any lower income 6-year-old, the doctor can say, I've got Harvard studies here saying that obesity is genetic. It's not your child's fault. Let's get them a lifetime jabs.
Wrong. We got to get away from that indoctrination of genetics and historical. It's just like, I don't know. We can use horrific examples, but the most clear cut, there's certain character traits, whether they're narcissistic or good traits, that just gets passed down generation from generation. Food, habits, things of that nature are the same. So once again, back to that cancer patient that shared with me how certain individuals in their lives broke the family curse, if you will, of cancers by simply changing the family habit, addiction, if you will. And I'm not going to lie, that's some of the toughest work we'll do in this experience is the self work. You got to kick pride and ego in the face, have meekness, humbleness, and do your due diligence and research and really figure it out for yourself. Genetics, I'd push so heavily against genetics and be like, watch this, for individuals when they really take it serious. I mean, because it's been said, we all have active like cancer cells or whatever cancer like within our body. So the question just becomes, what habitat are you creating for it? One generationally where it pretty much thrives in it, and there is a long line in your family of dealing with the same thing, or someone now deciding, no, I'm not going to create that habitat, and I'm going to have a healthy habitat where it won't thrive, and they break that whole genetic line of cancer. The choice is yours, but there's legit science behind it.
Well, if it's genetic, why didn't it exist 100 years ago?
Good question. But Harvard and the NIH and the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying it's a brain disease, it's genetic. And on 60 Minutes, as we talked about, a leading Harvard physician, Fatima Cody Stanford, said that it's...
Tucker's question was very powerful. If it's genetic, why didn't they have cancers 100 years ago? Or the same things that are now happening, right? Boom, that blows it up right there.
That throw willpower out the window. This is a genetic condition. And it's actually, she said, an affront and classist and racist to suggest it's anything other than genetic.
Unbelievable.
So that's the message being told from the medical system. You ask why? Because the second you can get that 6-year-old on a lifetime injection, and let's just take this to every drug, it's the chronic disease treadmill. They're told that injection is a savior, right? Sure. And then the government, it's the largest line item in our budget. It's going to bankrupt the country. It's growing faster than any other line item in the budget, right? And Medicaid, the government is going to pay for that lower income kid $1,500 a month because the government also has to just pay the sticker price, right? We're paying our sticker price.
Unfortunately, with the poorer individuals, it seems with less means, they're more wrapped up into the junk foods, the useless entertainment, and they're just fulfilling that generational curse. We need to help, inform and share this knowledge with the poor communities and such to where they're informed, to where they can hold themselves accountable and break through. You don't want to be dependent on this system that is going to feed and enrich and perpetuate illness and suffering in this life on on your behalf, like all to your detriment. Break this cycle. We all have a role to play. I don't know what better thing to be involved in and engaged in than to fight against the needless suffering of so many around us. I hope and pray that we get more engaged and spread this like wildfire to have that positive impact.
Is 10 times more expensive than Germany. So the second you get something on the Medicaid schedule, then all lower income people are open season.
Man.
And what's so criminal about this, and what's so representative of why this is a problem, is that the medical system is saying, they're saying it's a social justice issue, it's a moral issue. We have to pay $1,500 for 74% of US adults who are overweight or obese per month. That we have to find the money. The stock is the 12th most valuable company in the world. I have expectation that the US is going to say that.
Wow.
But where is that urgency from the medical system about why this stuff is happening in the first place, why it's not happening in Japan?
Boom.
Where's the urgency on saying, hey, parents, maybe we shouldn't feed our kids toxic food.
Right.
Maybe we should be looking at the root cause of obesity. And so this is the key point. Forget any public policy. The medical leadership should just say the truth. They should explain why there's an obesity crisis among children.
Yes.
It's not a Ozempic deficiency. It's because of very simple inputs to our metabolic environment and, frankly, a rigged system where our food has been compromised. There's nothing.
Why? I mean, we need Elon Musk's and the wealthy in the world. There's great opportunity. Obviously, there's semi-decent health stores, and then there's total facade health stores that sell the same junk as your Walmarts. It's unbelievable. But there's grave opportunity because with this awakening, there's a lot of individuals that are thirsty, and there's, grass-fed meat shipping facilities, family-owned, seeming to start answering this call and popping up. So that's the thing. Let's not be sold on freaking convenience. Let's learn the truth, and let's source and vet actual nutritional, because the reality of it is, if you have to drive an extra mile, 10 miles even, it's still never been more convenient to eat healthy. Right now, we're kind of losing that because with all the regulations and how they're starting to vaccinate and, mRNA freaking things into chicken, pig, cow. I mean, they've even created effectively lettuce, tomato, and tobacco products infused with this vaccination. We got to shut all that down. So we are losing, in a way, that convenience and the ability, and it's becoming more challenging. But once we root out that corruption, then obviously there's just great opportunity for investors to kick things off, or business entrepreneurs to start creating solutions for the masses as we ramp up education. I mean, my goodness, let's freaking go. We can create the alternate economies even together. 100%. Do not discredit yourself. Not one bit. It's so important that we forward this on, pay it forward, and tell them to pay it forward. It's our lives, it's our children's lives, and it's our futures at stake. It is absolutely crucial.
The conservative or liberal about our food system being compromised.
I couldn't agree more. It's not
the medical system, before any public policy, should simply state that. And a key point in America is that we listen to our medical leaders. We changed our diet when the food pyramid came out. Smoking rates plummeted when the Surgeon General report came out.
The majority of Americans got the COVID vaccine.
When Dr. Fauci said, get the vax, most people, we respect and listen, but medical providers they actually literally have social justice components where they're actually not able to recommend natural food because there's a component in the USDA nutrition guidelines which takes into account social justice. So they're worried about affordability.
May I ask what does that mean? So it's racist to eat non-poisonous food?
In America, it is classist and racist to suggest that mothers shouldn't be poisoning their kids. Yes, that is what the USDA argues.
So it's like yet another example. There are so many of them, and you've talked about them when you were lobbying for Coke, of the richest people in the society, the ones who are looting the society, using issues like racism or sexism or classism as cudgels to beat back criticism of their looting.
Right. The NAACP is a registered lobbyist for Ozempic today.
Oh my gosh.
There are
the
registered.
part that makes us scratch our head is like, how are we so delusional that we think it is easier to inject a child weekly for life than find a way to get that child healthy food?
Right.
Like that is the track that we're on right now. That is insane. But we're believing it. We're drinking that Kool-Aid. It doesn't make any sense. We could take these dollars so simply, so easily, and funnel them towards healthier diet and lifestyle. $3 trillion a year. We could feed every single American family with organic food for $3 trillion a year. But instead, we're taking those healthcare dollars and steering them towards drugs, which doesn't fix the root cause issue.
Our message isn't drug or anti-drug. It's just like, let's look at the problem. Like say you're just an alien that came down from space. You look at America.
I'm anti-drug. They talked about trust and respect a bit ago. These institutions, all of them, have lost my trust, have entirely lost my respect. In fact, it seems as though they've waged war on we the people by manipulating all these systems to our detriment. We gotta call for more to get educated. 100%. Like, this is the pandemic, in my eyes, is a smoking gun for people to acknowledge in a huge sense, and not all will, but the levels of corruption in this country. This health crisis and the poisoning of our food, I believe, is a smoking gun to get people engaged in a huge sense. I mean, can we make it be that? I mean, with some simple, on this episode alone, can't we allow this to be enough? And let's go. Let's take action.
America, kids and adults are just overwhelmingly metabolic dysfunctional, obese, diabetic. It's like you'd never say, like, let's keep happening and then jab everyone and drug everyone and manage the condition. It was just never, it's just follow the science. Maybe drugs actually do come into play there, but the history of chronic disease medications has been a complete disaster. We always say, if you have a gunshot wound, an emergency surgical need that's going to kill you right away, complicated childbirth, infection, 100%. The medical system is a miracle.
Acute issues.
Chronic disease medications didn't exist before 1960. The first one was the birth control pill, the first pill that you took for more than a couple of weeks that didn't cure the issue right away, ever. So in 1960, 0% of the medical budget was on chronic conditions. Where we can talk about that. But 0% was chronic conditions. Today, 95% of spending is on chronic conditions. Because what the system realized is that they can take the trust engendered after World War II with antibiotics and various medical innovations that helped women, and then steer it towards chronic conditions. 1970s, 30% of women in the United States were on Valium, a highly addictive drug.
Physically addictive.
Yeah. And it's just been a battle to shift the medical system to chronic disease.
Can we just go to the pill really quick? And I just want to say up front that, I'm Protestant, never had a problem with birth control, never thought about it, but at all. So that's my position, or has been my position, which is actually radically changing as we speak. But I've always felt that way. So I never really thought about it, but I always noticed that you were not allowed to criticize the pill. Period. Like, that was not allowed in the world I grew up in. You could have all kinds of kooky opinions. You cannot criticize the birth control pill.
Wow.
And now I feel like maybe we were played a little bit. You're laughing sardonically.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak as a physician, but I can also just speak as a woman
yes,
who has taken all these different medications because it's liberation.
Yeah.
It's liberation.
Yes.
We can do whatever we want, and who needs to get a period when you can, work in the hospital 100 hours a week and put off having, and then I freeze my eggs at 37 and have kids, So as a woman, I do think, of course, these drugs have helped in some ways, but we are prescribing them like candy. We're prescribing them for acne. We're prescribing them for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, the leading cause of infertility in the United States, which is a metabolic issue driven by our food.
Just since she's speaking on this, on the first half of the episode, I love how she acknowledged and admitted in a huge way how she, in fact, had been duped of following this system, and it's liberating and all about the money and success. When she when she got to that pinnacle, she realized, like, whoa, frick, yes, this is needed, like surgeons and whatnot, but this is not the root of the issue. Like, I could have a far more impact. So she stepped away from it all. But in all of this realization, she also came to the conclusion that isn't the pinnacle of this life miracle of creating life, of being a mother, of having children. That there's far more value and beauty in this existence to that than any career, any number amount in a bank account. That is when you're having healthy children and you're healthy yourself versus being fooled into the system. I found that so crucial, so beautiful. And this interview just keeps giving. I absolutely love it.
How the food interacts with genetics. And then, of course, for birth control. So you've got these medications that are literally shutting down the hormones in the female body that create this cyclical life-giving nature of women. We basically told women these hormones don't matter. Your ability to create the most miracle of any miracles, which is create life, just shut it down. There's no impacts. That's crazy to me. And as I've woken up from this, I'm realized, like, your cycle and having these hormonal cycles is part and parcel with our health in every possible way, and also with the miracle of creating life. And so for years, you just lose the biofeedback of what's happening with your cycle. It is one of the key barometers of female health. How is your cycle doing? Is it regular? Is it heavy? And we just shut it down and say there's no repercussions for that, which I think gets to a larger issue, which is a disrespect of life, right?
Yes.
It's a disrespect of things that create life. And I think about, you've got the pill, and it just goes hand in hand with the rise. And this is going to seem a little far out there, but like, it goes rise and rhyme with the hand of industrial agriculture, the spraying of these pesticides, the things that give life in this world, which are women and soil. We have tried to dominate and shut down the cycles. We have lost respect for life, which again gets to the spiritual crisis.
Keep going.
Yes.
I love this.
And I think
you are speaking truth right now.
For the sake of efficiency, right? For this delusion of short-term gains, for yields, for profit. But what we need to realize is that we live in an interdependent ecosystem that has to be harmonious, not dominated, which means gentler, And so by taking a hammer to women's hormones, taking a hammer to pests, what we've done is we are destroying the things that give us life in this country. And that is, I think, part of the root cause of why things feel so dark right now, because it's bigger than all of this. We are actually turning our back on life.
Does it surprise you that all of this happened within 20 years of developing the atom bomb?
No. And I mean, speaking of that, I think it's really interesting to think about the relationship between war and what's happening.
100%.
So where did all these pesticides that have destroyed our life-giving soil and are creating a fragile food system, which is going to create a food crisis?
These are just other tactics of war. 100%.
At some point, where did they all come from? Nazi Germany, right? So Hitler was developing chemicals of war and trying to create agriculture solutions to create more food yields for Germany. And these some of these pesticides, these organophosphate chemicals, were turned directly into sprays that we're putting on all our food. The interrelationship between Nazi Germany and what's being sprayed on every piece of food in the United States is deeply linked, and we need to think about that.
Right.
15% of
one other thing I just want to say: this is being federally subsidized by the government through the farm bills. We haven't spoken about the farm bills, but you think about this funneling of money that's happening and how the government in a way is working against us. And I don't think it's nefarious at all. I think people just don't understand. We've talked to so many Congress people. They just don't understand the health effects of.
So not nefarious to certain ignorant congressmen, but as businesses and the think tanks and the plan, like, it's pretty freaking nefarious.
Of all these that are happening, of the processed foods, and everyone likes their Oreos, so it's a tough issue because we're addicted.
I'm not addicted. I don't like my Oreos. Done with that crap. Are you kidding me? For a moment of taste, pleasure, like I get. That's why I'm out here and I'm excited for this hunt. Gonna have some over-the-counter archery opportunities, whether I'm blessed with an animal or not, to be in connection in this environment and with your food. I'm sorry, the pleasure when successful of pure nutritional meat far out exceeds a freaking Oreo cookie or any other substance created by man. Are you kidding me? It's spiritual, it's emotional, it's moving, and we've gotten too far detached from experiencing that on any level, and we've lost, even in a way, respect for these animals, and we just another burger with bacon and triple patty, and there's just no connection. And that's sad. Oh, lots of opportunity right here, folks, for each and every one of us. God bless you. We got this together. I know we do.
But the farm bills are making all these unhealthy foods cheaper. They federally subsidize commodity crops, which are turned into processed food. So this is the corn, the soy, the wheat, making these foods artificially cheaper. So this is why, people say this is where the social justice piece comes into it. It is, in many ways, it is much harder as a poor American to buy food that is not poisoned because our government is making the poisoned food cheaper.
Wow.
What is happening? We don't even.
It's not a free market.
It's not a free market at work. This is not a free market. It's rigged. It's rigged against poor people.
So good.
And so there's nothing conservative about what's happening.
And
totally
President Trump is calling this out.
Yes.
RFK is obviously calling this out.
Awesome.
But calling out a rigged market is not an attack on the free market. Like, we need to speak truth here, particularly when it's impacting human capital.
Calling out a rigged market is a call for a free market.
It's imperative.
Yeah,
that's right.
And working for these companies, we actually used to use that argument. You rig the market and then yell nanny state whenever anyone questions the rigged market. And the fact that there's more agriculture subsidies that go to tobacco than fruits and vegetables. 0.4% of agriculture subsidies go to fruits and vegetables.
Wow.
2% goes to tobacco, 90% goes to ultra-processed food, and it's highly slanted against small farmers. This gets dark. I mean, talking about the Nazis, 15% of...
Well, I mean, it's just, I do think it's not accidental that was a regime based on occult practices that hated Christianity and whose signature act, which no one ever seems to remember, it was murdering hundreds of thousands of Germans in hospitals through euthanasia, so-called mercy killing of kids and adults who were substandard.
Yes.
And so, does it surprise you that atomic weapons and poison pesticides both came from that regime? No, not really.
Well, also,
Sorry.
That's just all true. So they always tell you it's the most important election of your lifetime, but if
Golly. I love Tucker just wears his emotions. And when they were speaking such truth, you could see it just feeding him. He's gaining more and more of my trust. And I'm just so grateful for a man like that in this time exposing what he's exposing is so greatly needed. For the longest of time, like I saw your value in the podcast realm. I had no idea I'd be integrating into it with the whole Lyme. And anyway, don't need to really get into all that, but I was a huge I started transitioning from audiobooks, self-help, all this, because I didn't, I'm trying to like work through prior to my diagnosis of Lyme disease and why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So I had all these self-help books, but then I started migrating to like the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, who hasn't listened to any of those episodes? But this was pre-pandemic. So when the pandemic started kicking off, it stood up on all these lies. I started getting more and more frustrated with Joe, because I was like, Joe, and my hat's off to him. He's done a lot of us a service in a huge sense, but his episodes were too self-serving. And I'm like, my goodness, it's like that Spider-Man saying, with great gifts comes great responsibility. And he had has the biggest podcast platform out there. I'm like, come on, Joe, why are you catering to one side of things? You could be revolutionary to the awakening and literally stop this pandemic dead in its tracks by actually having doctors on that were exposing the PCR test. We're exposing sounding the alarm on these jabs. You could save countless lives, but you would have had pushback. You would have had threats. So, I'm not in your shoes, but needless to say, it's just, and yes, he's come a long way since then, and he's done, and he's doing more and more, because he's actually finally, I think, kind of realizing, as much as it's the system, it's more so catering to the majority of the people. And, I knew that way back then, it would have been great, but to have someone that's more so selfless and just real, raw, transparent, airs his flaws, yet very intelligent, dare I say, a beautiful soul. This is awesome. All right. Did I compliment him enough that we'll get on his pocket? No, that's not the point here. I'm being genuine, and I'm just expressing gratitude. Let's continue.
Of course, this one actually, where we can't, will be just going to on stage.
Today, 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall. Adderall was created by Nazi Germany. So there's a great book called Blitzed about this, but Merck developed the precursor to Adderall in order to give to German soldiers. So they got one pill a day. And actually, it was discontinued by the end of the war because there was such psychosis among the German soldiers taking this every day. It was to make them more aggressive. They actually reformulated it, Merck, and made a stronger version. And that is Adderall, which is now given to 15% of children. And this idea that, many parents watching, just as Ozempic's being pushed on their kids, just as SSRIs being pushed on their kids, just as SADs are being pushed on their kids, parents being cudgeled with medical studies saying they're putting their kid at risk for not following this medical guidance. They're also, if their kid is a little bit distracted, sitting in a sedentary environment with limited sunlight, being force-fed ultra-processed food, they're getting a little fidgety and they're prescribed Adderall right away. That's the standard of care, not even thinking about it. Think about any animal you put in a cage, low sunlight.
My heart goes out. I got people close to me with children that are already, he just laid it out beautifully, and they're on Adderall, and the parents they'll push back. And it's like, look, it's not my place. They're your kids. But there's information that is just overwhelming. It's like, why resort to that when there's known side effects, known addictions, known just horrific things, when like there's CBD oils that have been the non-psychedelic that have been reported to be very beneficial. But more than that, the detoxifying, even on a child, level, and bringing in real nutrition could be a game changer. But it isn't going to be immediate. It's going to take time. I mean, frick, the Adderall took time. It's like we need to fight tooth and nail to get more back to grassroots, natural, just way of life.
Like sedentary, force feeding ultra processed food. So just as a society,
prisoners,
just as a societal level here, we're really committing mass child abuse in many ways,
right?
And we're normalizing that, and we're not speaking out about that, and then we're giving people stimulants developed by not.
Do I dare tell those individuals in my life to that extent? Like, look, to a level, there is a level of child abuse to your ignorance. Oof, that wouldn't bode over well with some, would it? That's where an episode like this could be that seed, could shift that, because you can make these connections, and then you could research all these talking points, all the data that these very intelligent individuals have brought up in this very powerful episode. Information's key. Let's send this far and wide. Let's get this to our loved ones, especially the parents with littles. My goodness.
Nazi Germany. I mean, it's kind of crazy. That's much more profitable. From a pure economic standpoint, getting a kid off of this treadmill costs millions of dollars. A diabetic person on Medicaid, if they're diabetic by the time they're 30, they're getting millions of dollars. They're generating millions of dollars paid for by the government to pharmaceutical and healthcare companies. Millions of dollars. If you train a lower income person, and talk to them about metabolic health, frankly, reading the principles Casey talks about in the book, and they're going on a path of thriving, of understanding with their family what they're putting into their bodies, of movement. They're costing the system millions of dollars. That's how the kind of economic reality of how the system works. That's kind of the battle. Getting to your point about how people let this happen on doctors, I think the brilliance of the systemic design is the most revered people in our society are basically able to keep up this system. They're able to have their fancy studies that really just take responsibility for managing the disease instead of curing, right? Mm-hmm. They censor. I had a call when I attacked the dean of Tufts Nutrition School, the most prominent nutrition researcher in the country, Dariush Mozaffarian. He called me and actually threatened to call Stanford, where we both went. And he said, we know the same people at Stanford. This is not right to be upsetting the apple cart. And I said, well, does your school not take the majority of its funding from food companies to impact nutrition policies in the United States? He said, of course we do, but that doesn't impact my judgment. And the fact that you're calling that out, and the fact that you're questioning the study that we conducted with the NIH that said Lucky Charms were healthier than beef.
Lucky Charms, obviously it's laughable. They're laughing, but good on you, bud. On behalf of all you other Americans that may or may not even care, I appreciate the action and the steps you took, and the flack and the threats you actually received. That's a threat. We know some people, and essentially, forget that status. Go ahead, attack the status. You could threaten my character all you want. Doesn't make it true. Bless you, man. We need more of that.
The fact that you're calling this out really isn't polite. This isn't how it works, Callie. And we know the same people at Stanford, and this isn't polite. I'm going to call Stanford, and basically threatening me to be kicked out of the club.
Wow.
That's how this works.
And then these studies are used to create, influence the USDA guidelines. 95% of people on the USDA nutrition guidelines for America 2020 and 2025 had a conflict of interest with food companies. Wow. These studies are used to influence what the USDA is basically saying can go in school lunches. The USDA controls the U.S. school lunch program, which serves 3 billion meals per year to
3
students.
Billion.
It's the largest fast food chain in America.
Yeah. Holy smokes. That truly is the largest fast food chain in America. We got to change that.
The USDA school lunch program. And, just this past year, Kraft Heinz is brokering deals with the USDA to put Lunchables in schools.
It's the top growth area for Kraft. Is
What's a Lunchable?
It's the processed plastic squares with
ham,
crackers
cheese, and crackers. That's going to be the school lunches, and these corporate deals are happening. And it's studies like this that then
I'm assuming
allow
Lunchables are
they're not good.
suboptimal.
They're suboptimal. You look at the ingredients. There's about 60 ingredients in these packages. There's no fruit. There's no vegetables. It's literally processed flour, processed oil. It's just these staples of the American ultra processed food system that are just rotting children's brains and bodies.
There should be like 4 or 5 ingredients to a Lunchable. That's how toxic our food's gotten.
Would you believe, right, today, and I think this is one of the most criminal that we talk about what we can change. Today, the USDA, which sets the standards that impact schools, that impact parents' perceptions, everything, they say that a healthy diet for a 2-year-old is up to 10% added sugar. They're recommending added sugar for 2-year-olds when we have a metabolic health crisis, a childhood obesity crisis, and where 33% of young adults now have prediabetes, which would have just been absolutely unthinkable. There's an assault on children's cells.
And you don't want to say it's intentional, and you want to say it's just about getting cheaper when they're feeding into all this illness and disease. Holy moly. This is evil. Come on, it's biblical, it's spiritual warfare, but it's even more than that. It's biological warfare. It's warfare in our food in this country. It's time to rule out this corruption here. You are worth it. Let's do this together. And the simple call to action for today is just getting this content, getting this information out there. Because as we get people taking their health more serious, they're going to gain the resilience, and their natural gifts are going to come to the forefront, which is going to just provide more solutions and more pushback and more courses of action. We all become the solution. But this is pretty much that cornerstone to a really solid foundation to those solutions.
Because of our food, added sugar is a huge one. And the USDA recommends it. Imagine, and this is just, it's so simple. If medical leaders actually had courage, if they had courage, volume and the urgency of our medical community talking about the COVID vaccine, about the childhood chronic disease crisis, not banning sugar, not banning anything, but just from a medical perspective, saying it's probably a good idea to re-look at what we're feeding kids in the midst of a metabolic health crisis, and probably sugar should be discouraged. Wow. They don't say that right now. The USDA just put a report out saying a diet 93% in ultra-processed food for kids could be healthy. The USDA is doing marketing for ultra-processed food. They're not speaking in a clear voice because 95% of the advisors on the committee are corrupted. 40% of the advisors that President Biden has already put for the next committee are paid for by the maker of Ozempic. Why do we have a huge chunk of the USDA Nutrition Guideline Committee paid for by Ozempic? You'll have to unpack that one.
A foreign drug maker.
Yeah, and then you've got Jason and Travis Kelly doing brokering. You might have seen they're now endorsing a new cereal blend with General Mills, and
we're literally losing, guys. We're losing. We're not getting engaged enough. All this infrastructure that is leading to what is on the shelves and impacting even local farmers, we're losing. We got to turn this around now. Like right now. We can't allow it to go further. Otherwise, we will start losing more and more of our resilience, more of our bandwidth and energy and clarity, everything. It is so crucial that we seize this moment in time that we were put here to do. Anyone to say, oh, no, I wasn't put here to have any involvement in any of these things. I'm just here that's delusional. You wouldn't be put in this time. You got unique gifts, and we got to tap into that. And you yourself, I'd venture to say, in doing that, would be so blessed and fulfilled. Just maybe you're so far detached from that you can't we're still in like self-serving land, which is defective wiring, our society, parental, all sorts of things that impacts, and I get it. It takes some time. It took a long time for me, but we could help shorten that by shining light on truth, shine the light on the sense of urgency they're speaking of. That is key.
And every mainstream media outlet is with them basically laughing about how great this is. They're not talking about this metabolic disease epidemic that's destroying our children. They just turn a blind eye to any of the problematic nature of this because, of course, their ad funding comes from pharma and food.
Can I ask, so you all are focused on children, which is, indisputably the right thing. But for, people my age, maybe even your age, watching someone you love die from dementia, from Alzheimer's, universally regarded as the worst thing, just the worst thing. And it seems to me the incidence of dementia is like rising. Yeah. Am I imagining that?
Dealing with it more
and
more.
If it's true, why is it happening? What can be done?
It's going up rapidly. It's happening in younger people. We're seeing Alzheimer's in people as young as 50. There are no drugs that actually reverse the disease. There are no good drugs for Alzheimer's. And we know... Still, there are no drugs there's drugs that slightly slow the progression, but do nothing to reverse the disease. And research from top journals in the world, like The Lancet, have explicitly stated that it is modifiable lifestyle factors that drive the development of this disease. Things like healthy eating, smoking, and moving and exercise.
Well, they're also trying to take away our ability of choice to not lead to this type of outcome with the spraying of our skies, inhaling this. I mean, bees are becoming an endangered species, and they found insane levels of aluminum in their brains. And you think about it, when they're spraying the skies and these plants are soaking all this up and putting all the energy towards the blooming of the flower and whatnot, like a lot of those particles become, and they're getting that pollen, and so it's going right in there. How is it? How we're not immune to that? We also, so we got to put an end to, under the guise of fighting climate change, an entire hoax, they're poisoning us. We have to address that too. But if we once again, this becomes a catalyst to addressing that effectively. We can't afford on an individual level, we'll start making those proper changes tomorrow. It's like, no. There's what is it? Intentional Foods is an amazing place in the Valley. Inspired Farms, I believe. And you can look up many meat markets, family owned and such, and talk to them. And they pride themselves. They love to have these conversations where they are providing grass-fed, not fully COVID boosted up animals. So they're healthy. And you can get your hands on that literally today. There's a whole slew of places that we'd like to even affiliate with that we've been looking into, providing some sources where you can even order online. You can get subscription based to where you hone in on, just the amounts you need, and it's just auto shipped. So there are ways, even potentially more convenient. It's just the inconvenience up front, more so than what you're already accustomed to and used to. Break those old habits and establish new ones that are going to lead to health, wellness, excitement, to do our part. God bless you, listeners. Let's continue.
These are the best possible way we could prevent Alzheimer's in this country is by people getting up and moving more, eating unprocessed organic food, and not smoking. And unfortunately, you never hear that, right? This is a largely preventable disease that is skyrocketing right now.
Alzheimer's is largely preventable.
Largely preventable.
Oh, yeah.
Alzheimer's with with simple.
Once again, other than the chemtrails and the spray, are you freaking kidding me? Nothing conspiratorial about it. It's proof. It's not even debatable. If you're like, oh yeah, that's conspiracy, you haven't done your research. Just do your research. Frankenskies on Rumble. Boom. Just start there. That's amazing.
Simple, free lifestyle habits. Right now, Alzheimer's dementia, many researchers are calling it type 3 diabetes. Okay, we have type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, type 3 diabetes, because there is such a link between metabolic dysfunction and the development of the disease. Wow. And you think about it, it makes complete obvious sense. The brain is 2% of our body weight, but it uses 20% of our energy because it's like a computer. It's high processing power, right? It's using tons of energy to make all these billions of neurons work, right? So 20% of our body's energy. Metabolic dysfunction is a problem with how our body makes energy because our cells are destroyed by our food and our environment. So you have a problem in the body systemically, like diabetes or prediabetes, that's an overt representation of our bodies not making energy properly. That is going to disproportionately affect the brain. Okay. So an underpowered brain is going to not be able to think properly. And that's what's happening in Alzheimer's. There's a neuroenergetic theory of Alzheimer's that creates the downstream issues that we talk about, like the plaques in the brain.
Even before the onset of Alzheimer's, your brain isn't going to be functioning at its best capacity. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what energy we could have. We don't know what brain power we could have and additional gifts we could have until we, in fact, take this more serious. And it's been a slow drip. It literally has been that frog slowly boiling in that pot of water. They've slowly been cranking it up. It's time to jump out. Wow, it's nice. Why was I dying in there? Come on, let's go.
And things like that. These are responses to a fundamental issue with how the brain is powering itself. So we need to just all wake up and realize we need to support the cells of the body with the simple evidence-based habits that let us be metabolically healthy so our brain has the energy to do its work.
So if dementia or Alzheimer, there are many forms of dementia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, but if at least the big one is caused by metabolic dysfunction, is it conceivably reversible or slowable with changes to behavior?
There are amazing researchers like Dr. Dale Bredesen, Dr. David Perlmutter, many others who have shown that we can reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's with a healthier lifestyle. Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's, which everyone should read.
It's the most effective reversal protocol ever conducted.
What is it?
He talks about how there's not one thing here, right? It's a breaking of the cells. And that can happen from a lot of different things in our environment. So he talks about like 36 holes in the roof that basically have to be plugged for the rain to stop pouring into the house, right? So it's not just one thing. We've got to check our vitamin D levels. We've got to check our insulin levels. We've got to get our B12 levels, right? There's all these things that we know affect the cellular biology of our brain. And essentially, when you overwhelm the body too much and undernourish it, there's going to be breakdown. And so we have to examine each of these factors that we know is linked to dementia and then fix each one. And the path for you might be different for me, right? Some of those 36 factors fine in you, but not fine in me. And we might have different ones. So that's why personalized medicine is so important, because we have to understand, it's from all aspects of our environment that our cells are getting hurt. So we have to realize through testing and personalized, medicine, which in our body are causing the problems. But by and large, the simple reality is if we're eating nutrient-rich whole foods, moving our bodies, getting enough sleep, staying intellectually stimulated, not smoking and avoiding toxins, our cells are going to do a much better job of doing their work.
Even with Alzheimer's, that there's no treatment that has been till now. Like, our bodies are so resilient. Let's take care of them. That's such great news.
The first chapter of when we get into plans is really guiding Casey Guides through a list of how to read blood tests. I got on a path a couple of years ago when I had my regular cholesterol test. They said I was perfectly fine, showed it to her. She's like, this is blaring metabolic dysfunction. I go back to my doctor and they're like, oh yeah, it's really bad, but you're not treatable yet. You're not ready for a statin. So we just say you're fine. Like, a key thing is actually
seriously?
Yeah. So you get to treatable levels. And then when but we're brewing metabolic dysfunction. Everyone, especially people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that are healthy, are brewing metabolic dysfunction. They're brewing those things. But my mom was told she was healthy by her primary care provider months before the cancer diagnosis because she was on 5 medications, which is less than the average American her age, right? Well, these are all rites of passage, right? So I wasn't quite at the statin level. So a key thing, and we arm this with the book, just with the free blood tests, and then there's new services, this personalized medicine revolution where you can get 100 blood tests, companies like Function Health, or you can go to a functional medicine doctor who can order these tests at just a couple $100. And you can get more of a personalized view. And then you can attack those deficiencies with food and with supplementation and get the root cause of things under control. And to our point in the book is that dementia is on the same, it's a branch of the same tree as diabetes, as heart disease, as kidney disease, of even dying of COVID. These are all very similar things. If you can cure the root, if you can understand. So a lot of our advice would just be work through the personalized blood test, understand what's happening to you, and then match those nutrient needs with your food and with your supplementation to cure what your blood tests are telling you. And if you get your metabolic biomarkers more under control, you're able to reverse and absolutely prevent most of the conditions that are plaguing the American people that have really only become new phenomenons in the past generation. It's all kind of rooted in the same thing. And that's really what our big mission is like, we need actually a new paradigm of how we view chronic disease. I mean, it's just a lie, right? That if you have a high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and depression, you're seeing 3 different doctors who aren't talking to each other at all. That's
boom. Let's hit on something very powerful. Why is it we cannot post this on YouTube? Why is it a slew of platforms? Whether they're wrong, it's irrelevant. But they're not wrong, by the way. They brought up, I mean, it's science, it's facts, it's proof. There's so much proof. These food companies, these corrupt politicians, they're all merging with one another to our detriment, to censor our voices, to limit the awakening, to enrich themselves from the ones that don't get it and have drank the Kool-Aid of their misinformation and their science. It's, I mean, the simple fact that revolving door where the merging of the companies that are causing and creating the disease with the actual medical companies that are having the treatment. Yeah, just that revolving door, create illness, treat illness, then hide the science that tells us what is happening. This is the information they want to hide that proves, that highlights what's happening, folks. We got to get this out there to everyone. Every American needs this like level of understanding. Whether is this episode enough? Could we magnify it, whether it's through Unmuzzled and also my input, or whatever you find more valuable, maybe the direct link to Tucker's interview? We need to get it out there to everyone to start awakening that within themselves, to finding the best version of them and gaining their health back. It isn't a sacrifice to cut this crap out. It truly isn't. When you start feeling the benefits and you got the energy and the clarity and the depression's going away and you're less triggered with your loved ones. I like, are you kidding me? You're more active. You get more enjoyment out of the things you love to do in this life. You start to feel more fulfilled because you, instead of just showing up at a job that semi pays the bill, you're willing to give the middle finger to that boss and go land into your purpose in this existence. Like, that is everything. We gotta get this out. Let's create the proper momentum. This would lead, hopefully we could get enough people on board to awaken here, because then I know we wouldn't allow our country to be overtaken by evil freaking pedophiles and evil doers and these secret societies that are all intertwined with the Epsteins and child trafficking, the most evil, satanic, demonic beings. Like we can't even imagine it. In a sense, it's like you don't have to believe in witchcraft and evil like others do, and others are acting upon that, and they're part of all of this. No one like serving God would be able to fulfill such atrocities, crimes against humanity, criminal behaviors, the poisoning of our country. It's illegal. The majority of these ingredients and shots and food are illegal in these other countries. It is criminal what is happening here. Full stop.
That's just wrong. It's very profitable, but it's wrong. You're on 3 different lifetime plans. You can really solve it with the root cause. And that's if the medical system was sane, right, with lower costs and unleash human capital. We're debating on the margins right now on the left and the right about how to change page 300 of Medicare Part D. Unless we're attacking the core incentive that was embedded by Obamacare, which was probably the deadliest law passed in recent history.
Whoa.
What Obamacare did is it ingrained the incentive that the medical system makes more money when people get sicker. Through the list idea of like taking on the insurance companies, it said insurance companies can only make a 15% profit margin medical loss ratio. They need to pay out 85% of their spending. But because now insurance companies can only get 15%, but by law, enshrined in Obamacare, they can raise premiums to get that 15%. What's their incentive? Your incentive is for the pie to grow. Your incentive is for costs to go up.
Wow.
So Obamacare actually incentivized insurance companies to have no cost controls. What does no cost controls mean? It means more people getting sick. So we're talking about inflation a lot right now. By far, the top driver of inflation in America right now is healthcare. And that's happening because there's no rein on cost. There's no rein on cost because everyone makes money when we get sicker. That's
Even
how it all
insurance
connects.
companies.
That's
so if 85% of their budget has to go to care, they take 15% by law from Obamacare. The more that we spend actually on healthcare, the more expenditures for patients, the more their 15% grows.
That's crazy. So
I must say, this brother-sister duo, and then also the trio with Tucker, but especially what mission, this sister-brother duo have set out upon. I'm with Tucker. How he complimented, like, I believe you two are going to change the world. It is important. I'd welcome them on my podcast. It's not even, I don't ever want to even reference. That's why I say our, because it isn't my podcast. I give it over to God and His will. And I constantly am in a battle, and I know it's beside the point, but it's something I'd like to share, and I should share more frequently. I constantly struggle in, God, has this been my will and not your will today? Like, if so, forgive me and direct me. Give me the discernment. Give me the sourcing. Give me the guests to, align with, to fulfill your will and your purpose. It's not my podcast. It's God's. It's yours. It's ours. And however we can see fit to benefit the people in this existence. But to Tucker's point, I would love for them to get the momentum to change the world. But this conversation, my gosh, it's so powerful. I know we're running long on this episode, but let's freaking marathon it. Let's get through it. Why not? It needs to be done. It needs more exposure. I am happy to be a part of that, and I hope you are too. And let's get it out there. And I don't know, this might be the longest stream we have ever done, and it seems to be going through beautifully. Relocating camp seems to be was a very good idea.
I mean, in a functioning system, of course, insurers would have the greatest possible incentive
Not
to
here.
keep illness down.
Obamacare, out of a populist kind of, we're gonna cap their profit margins, but they lobbied again. They can raise prices to get that 15%. So there is zero and I mean this. every single institution that impacts our health, insurance companies, pharma companies, hospitals, medical schools, they make more money when more Americans are sicker for longer periods of time, and they lose money when Americans get healthy.
It's just absolutely
That's
amazing.
the incentive. And then you go to Medicaid, which I talked about. There's just a huge incentive for more and more poor people to get sick because that's an annuity then to the pharma companies. So until you attack that incentive, and as Casey said, people just don't understand this. Everyone kind of makes sense. And actually, I think these things are very easy to change. But the problem is that it's enshrined that there's profit when people are sick. And then they use the Stanford and the Harvard and the AH. It's all this fancy club where people, it's like uncouth to talk. It's marginalized when you talk about nutrition among elite. It's wimpified. It's like Casey was yelled at by an attending surgeon. You didn't go to nutrition school. Don't talk to your patients about what to eat. We do serious medicine. We commit surgery.
And
if they're doing serious medicine, then why are the outcomes getting worse?
Because they're not responsible.
Why have life expectancy going down?
But they're
not paid for good outcomes.
The life expectancy is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
That's the underlying is just mass suffering, particularly among kids. I mean, this rapid increase in childhood diabetes. If you have diabetes by the time you're 30, you die 15 years younger. And you're suffering much more along the way. Yeah. And now almost, it's getting to almost the majority of young adults are pre-diabetic. So diabetes is not an isolated condition. It's cellular dysfunction, as Casey talks about in the book. It's the root of so many other things.
Okay, so let's, at breakfast when you were laying, and this is not our first conversation, you said, I'm going to make this positive. I called my brother last night and I was like, you got to come to breakfast with the means because it'll radicalize you, which you successfully did in about an hour.
Wow.
So I've got two more questions for you, broad questions. Here's the first. Let's say there's a means administration. You all are given absolute power over the society or power within the bounds of our system, right? You can do what a president can do. What are the first steps you take to fix this?
Day one, state of emergency for childhood chronic disease. Fully within the Constitution for the president to declare a state of emergency for public health. That's what happened during COVID. It was very little it was no congressional legislation. It was a state of emergency. What's happening in childhood chronic disease is a much orders of magnitude bigger state of emergency right now and more imminent emergency in America than COVID. So you declare a state of emergency.
For sure.
You declare a state of emergency for childhood health. We actually started a nonprofit and we have executive orders drafted. And there is so much stuff you can do, but it's a task.
Of course, it was a bigger sense of emergency than even COVID because COVID was built up off of a lie. No excessive deaths due to COVID. We'll just still define COVID, but I like how he worded it the way he did because so many people believe that was a actual. I can't even say it pandemic without saying pandemic or scandemic. Not even just. Obviously due to truth and untruth, but I've said it just so much. I forget even how to say pandemic. Anyways, let's continue.
Hacking the incentives. Just for starters, Biden's talked about this and President Trump's talked about it. But I think the fact that you need a president there who's willing to take some heat from these ingrained industries.
Yes.
You could sign a bill tomorrow saying pharma companies can't charge Americans more than what they charge people in Europe. We are spending, in some cases, 10 times more on drugs. We are subsidizing the largest companies in Europe with our insanity. That's not a free market. No. Tomorrow, you can cut this ridiculous thing.
You can thank the Republicans for that, by the way.
No, it's both sides.
Laid
Paul Ryan and
No, but the Republicans, I will say as a lifetime Republican voter, but they provided the ideological cover for that because they said, I was there when this happened, in Hillary Care, Obamacare. So between 1993 and 2011, they made this case consistently through their think tanks that it was a choice between socialism and capitalism. And if you were controlling costs, that was socialism.
It's socialism for pharma to have Congress over a barrel and not.
Oh, I'm very aware. It was the opposite of the truth.
I was working for conservative think tanks trying to make that argument. It's totally bankrupt. And actually, President Trump's talked about that. That's an executive order we can sign the first day.
Wow.
I'm still mad about that.
It's crazy. I cannot emphasize this enough how important it is just for medical leaders to cite the science. An executive order tomorrow could make it that USDA panelists cannot take money from food companies. What an idea. It can sign an executive order tomorrow that NIH grants can't go to conflicted researchers. 80% of them currently go to conflicted researchers.
Wow.
You could sign an executive order tomorrow that the FDA should stop being funded by pharma.
75% of their funding comes from pharma.
75% of the FDA's funding doesn't come from taxpayer, it comes from pharma. And there's
Corruption right there. We can't allow that. Conflicting of interest to the detriment of our well-being. We can't allow that to continue at all.
There's a revolving door, as we all know, where people go from the FDA to pharma. Institutions in the DC, as we both know, are built to grow. The FDA grows when the pharma's influence grows. The FDA should be an independent organization. It's not. That's an executive order tomorrow. So you just rob the conflicts of interest out of these things. Personnel. Assign doctors that we both know onto the USDA nutrition panel and have the president, have the secretary of the treasury, because we're going bankrupt from healthcare costs, have the secretary of defense, because 77% of young adults aren't eligible to join the military.
Wow.
Have them say, we are not banning any company. We're not even giving public policy recommendations, but we are saying from a medical perspective that we should reduce ultra-processed food consumption among children.
Yeah.
That is a medically valid statement.
Yeah.
And medical leaders need to start telling the truth. And then public policy, I'm fine where the public policy chips may fall where they may. But the president, the secretary of defense, the head of the NIH, the head of the FDA should be saying the medical truth.
Yes.
The most important dynamic in America, I believe, is when a child or a parent is sitting across from their doctor at the first stage of metabolic dysfunction. They're shoved into a one-size-fits-all process right now where they immediately get on a pharmaceutical treadmill. The medical guidance comes from the NIH, the FDA, and their associated groups like the American Diabetes Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics. That guidance itself is corrupt and says that Ozempic, is the cure for obesity and statins and heart disease. Not that if a doctor was recommending the right things, we'd be a healthier country. So you just have to go after the medical guidelines. That would transform the country. The last one I'd say, just going after incentives, I think it's a huge deal that our information sources have been totally co-opted.
Yeah.
50% of TV, 50% of TV news spending, coming from pharma is a huge deal. And why the hell is our media playing referee for defending pharmaceutical companies? Why are they
and silencing
why
doctors?
Are they suppressing any questions around that?
Great.
That's a huge problem that our dominant information sources for the past generation have been able to be co-opted by an industry that just as a statement of economic fact profits from Americans getting sick. Just undeniable.
And it's far deeper than that. Those talking heads and those institutions are entirely infiltrated. It isn't just appeasing their funders. They're part of this snake. It is horrific. That's why it is crucial, just like sourcing our food on this very episode, like sourcing our information. I mean, it's key. And anywhere that is censoring speech, they're on the wrong side of history, my friends. Anywhere. They're wrong. They're doing it. They have nefarious, hidden agendas, whether it's clear or not. And you're being manipulated. So YouTube being manipulated. Google owns YouTube. Google is, in fact, hugely manipulating by stealing your information and selling it. I mean, stealing whatever. You sign it. I guess you check all the things, all our apps. And we're being manipulated in so many ways we can't even effectively acknowledge. And we got to see past that and not allow all of this. My gosh, what a blessed era we live in, that we do have Rumble, that we do have some places we can speak freely. Does it seem like there's some algorithms potentially? Yeah, because once we expose certain things like Israel and, certain involvements of people, claiming Jew, I believe, to hide behind anti-Semitism, just the untouchable, like they're literally trying to pass legislation that we can't, infringing upon our First Amendment regarding that. And if we can't effectively question things, but they've even preyed upon the Christian heart and certain churches and things due to God's chosen people. But I believe that to be biblically skewed. That's viewing Old Testament, with the main lens to interpret the New Testament. That's backwards. You're to use the lens of the New Testament versus, I know we're getting off topic, but it's an important point, because I'd like for us to question and define chosen people in today's day and age. There's no race. There's no based on skin pigmentation. There's no chosen people based on geographic location or place of birth. Christ himself paved the way and gave us a narrow path. So anyone walking in that path through Christ, that is what I would view is God's chosen people. So no blind allegiance. Evil would use that in this world, which it has and which it is, for blind allegiance of believers to get behind more endless wars, more money laundering, more funding the very corruption that is spitting in your face and poisoning you and putting you into irons. We got to see past that. We can't fall prey to that. And I'd venture to say you got a pastor that's just blindly throwing allegiance out there. Find a new one. Find a new one. Above all, get that relationship. Focus on that relationship. Don't fall prey to false idolship in this existence from anything, from celebratorial or church-wise or anything. Like, our faith is to be directly in God, and any man that would put himself between that connection, I'd big red flag go up. I don't care how charismatic or, well-spoken they are. That's no bueno. Like, you take it up with God. Anyway, let's continue.
Tomorrow, the president could sign. That was actually D2C pharma advertising was an executive order from Reagan. It could be an executive order tomorrow. It's actually beautiful. You would cut 50% of mainstream media revenue, and be on the moral high ground. That's absolutely something.
Wow.
So stop recommending the bad stuff and stop subsidizing. There's also a host of things you can do before we get into any taxes, any bans, which I'm not even interested in talking about. Coke should exist, but it shouldn't be subsidized by food stamps. It shouldn't be recommended by the USDA as something okay for kids. It shouldn't be funded billions of dollars by the federal government.
Right.
These things just shouldn't be incentivized and fun. So we have a whole host of executive orders to cut the recommendations, to cut the conflicts, and then cut the incentives for these things.
When do we get to put the corrupt doctors in jail?
So you go to the motivations a lot. I think, again, the systemic genius of the whole system is that gives people plausible deniability. I would say, though, to add on to what Casey was saying earlier, that there's knowledge and we do need to start holding people accountable.
Well, and your sister's like the perfect example. It's like I just strongly identify with the world you grew up in because I know it so well. And you just you were the highest achiever in your neighborhood. And you find that the system you're living in is incompatible with your values. It's morally unacceptable to you and you opt out, but you're the only one who opts out. So that raises questions about everyone who didn't opt out. I'm sorry, it does.
I've got a dark stat for you. We talk about this in the book.
Wow, this is such a good
The highest suicide rate of any profession in America is doctors.
Really?
And the highest burnout rate. So what I see with that is that working hard doesn't make you super depressed and suicidal. Missionaries aren't committing suicide. Right. Yeah. I'm working hard on this mission. I feel really good about it
too.
They actually had a New York Times article recently that identified what doctors are feeling towards soldiers. It's the same psychological dynamic that soldiers who get in the fight for the right reasons, but then are forced by their superiors to commit war crimes. It's actually similar. The New York Times compared doctors to Abu Ghraib like soldiers who are forced to do horrible things or felt like they were forced. That's, I think, what's happening to the medical profession is these are all good people. There's much easier ways to make money. We actually are this magnet that attracts the best and the brightest from all of the world.
Agree.
We saddle them with debt. They have no other skills, and then they have societal expectations from their parents and all these credentials, but they do feel trapped. So I hope, it's certainly inspiring to me. It changed my whole life, kind of learning from story. I hope more and more people realize that there's light moving away from this system. And I always go back to Elon. Remember when he said, you're speaking out about all these issues you care about, but advertisers are flocking away from you. And he goes, I don't give a fuck. No. Yeah. That's the attitude we need in the healthcare industry. We need some people with that type of attitude, because it's the same thing. It's like, well, all these children are dying, but what are you going to, it's like, well, they're playing along with it.
Yeah, there's no immunity for a lot of these doctors. I'm sorry, the writing was on the wall, especially the ones in the hospitals administering life-saving care, aka remdesivir, that when it failed its Ebola. Like, there's a level of ignorance. I'm sorry, like there's no immunity when there's murder for hire and there's incentives where and it's leading to suffering and death. Are you freaking kidding me? Accountability is key. We can't live in this. We can't go out and break the law is the people in this country without being held accountable. Why is it so upside down? It is that time, isn't it? It really is. Time to get things running as they were designed. And if we need to put more checks and balances to ensure, well, let's do that. Such as, let's just make it part of any position of power or servant, right? Let's keep them to that servant role by making it, hey, like, I know it's gonna, but only the good will want to be in that position if we put these type of checks and balances. But automatic audit, financial audits, we're going to look at, while you're in this position of service, we're going to kind of with a fine-tooth comb all the financing, because the position only pays X amount. We want to ensure there's no outside level of influence other than, you signed up for this position. This is what it's going to pay. That's what you're going to freaking get. Period. And then we could talk about maybe, I don't know, if they do a good job when they're done and we, the people, want to praise them or something and throw them a bonus. I don't know. But there's a lot of things we could do. And it's far past time we get it to that place.
Talking to senior people at pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, everyone knows what's going on. It's like, it's hard. We don't know what to do. We need some leadership. But again, with simple executive orders, you can start changing these incentives. You can start changing them.
No, you're right. And I think I'm too judgmental. And I participated in an enormously corrupt system for my entire life. So until I was fired. It wasn't half as honorable as you. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Callie's talking about with the incentives is absolutely key. Why is 75% of the FDA budget coming from pharma? But I think there's a couple other things we could also sort of do to really change things. I mean, one is that we need to stop recommending added sugar to 2-year-olds, 10% of our diet. So that's easy, right? Like, the science supports that. And actually, when we were creating the 2020 to 2025 food guidelines for America, the medical advisory board to that panel said that we should absolutely reduce sugar recommendations from 10% to 6% of total calories. And it was rejected by the USDA, even though the doctors said to do it. So all these conflicts, we need to get the sugar out of that, because then it'll get, we'll have better school lunches, and we will not be telling parents that it's okay to give your kid 10% of their calories at 2 years old from added sugar. Right. Also, I think there's something really interesting we can do by actually using the existing tax and legal system to incentivize healthy purchases. Because right now, the healthier things are more expensive. And that's a problem. And that's because of our farm bills. So we need to change the farm bills. But we also need to give people more flexibility to use tax-free dollars to buy healthy products like organic food. And Callie has started an incredible company called TrueMed, which is helping to allow this to happen. Where why is it that we can use our HSA, FSA funding to buy drugs, but we can't use it to buy organic food? This is crazy. Like, this should be what we spend our tax advantage dollars on. So things like that, creating more patient choice with HSAs. And I think, we also need to talk about things like food marketing to children. We're one of the only developed countries that's allowing our TVs Nickelodeon for 28% of the ads to children to be ultra processed foods that we know are associated with chronic disease. And, there's other things I think that would be very high yield, that are just very basic. So
let me just give you one example that I think will be really relevant to people listening. Infertility is a huge issue. As Casey mentioned, PCOS, which is the leading cause of female infertility, 25%.
Explain what that is.
Yes. So very good question. So PCOS is the leading cause of female infertility. Anyone listening of childbearing age will know about this. It's an epidemic right now. It's gone up. It's multiples in the past generation.
What does it stand for?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
So
it's literally ramped up COVID in folks that got that bioweapon jab too. And I'm not here casting stones, because once again, the manipulation, the coercion, the hiding of information, I can't say I'd be in a different position if I were in your shoes anyways. So no, that's not the point, but to acknowledge what that has done to obviously never allow that again, and never allow that level of tyranny and gaslighting and manipulation, but also the poisoning, and to where we can effectively now come up with the proper solutions to eradicate it, and the systems to address the infertility issues that even pose. I don't think they touch on that necessarily, but there's other things to touch on. So let's go.
So insists.
Well, let's get into it. So that question you just asked, I know OBGYNs from Harvard who could not answer that question. This is not an exaggeration.
Wow.
OBGYNs are not taught what the condition is. They're only taught what the intervention is.
Okay, so let's always start. Wow. I know nothing about medicine or science, but I do know about interviews. Always start with the dumb questions first.
Good.
If you can't answer the dumb questions, I don't believe you.
So when a woman, and many women listening will have PCOS and across their OBGYN, they're put on a cascading set of interventions that are pharmaceutical.
Can you just tell me what it is?
Yeah, it's insulin resistance. It is not related to insulin resistance, which is on the spectrum of diabetes. It is insulin resistance. PCOS is a metabolic condition. Casey can speak a little bit more to it, but it's fundamentally related to the scene.
What is it? Can you just describe its symptoms and
absolutely? So PCOS, essentially you have an ovary. That ovary is making hormones. And when that ovary is stimulated by excess insulin, which is the hormone in the blood that helps us take blood sugar out of the blood and into the cells, insulin levels go up in the setting of metabolic dysfunction. We basically destroy our cells with our toxic food and lifestyle. The cells can no longer process sugar to energy. So the cell rejects sugar and it stays in the bloodstream. The body compensates by making more insulin to try and drive the sugar into the cell that's putting up a block because it's broken, essentially. That high insulin floats all around the body and does bad things all over the body, like drives cancer growth and also stimulates the ovary to make more testosterone. So you have women who are supposed to be making, estrogen and progesterone in very specific levels throughout the hormone cycle so that we can ovulate. And instead, insulin is driving the ovary to create testosterone, which totally disturbs the balance between all the sex hormones in the female body, and we don't ovulate. So you get these cysts that form because you've got an egg trying to basically ovulate, but instead it can't because the hormones are disrupted because of insulin, which is because of metabolic dysfunction, because of our food. And we get infertility because we're not ovulating. So
Lucky Charms leads over time.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. It's our
this condition is reversible in as little as 12 weeks with dietary interventions. There is peer-reviewed studies to show this. If we get our blood sugar levels under control and our insulin levels under control, we restore the hormonal balance.
They just walked through it so cleanly. They are so gifted. I'm so grateful for this power duo, brother, sister, and for Tucker having them on. Wow. I personally know a lot of individuals that have had issues right there, and they laid it out beautifully. in 12 weeks could totally turn it around on a nutritional level. Just even to know whether they provide the direct source or not, just to know, like, it's doable. What a blessing. And the information's out there, and information's key. And we gotta stop. I frick the white lab coats. Are you kidding me? I will never go into any of these positions and be an kind of response or naturally have any respect for any doctor. I will forever interview, and I could call basic office and just ask some simple questions and get a pretty good idea as to whether or not like my time is wasted there or not. But we just can't blindly entrust, and we must learn the right questions and how to properly vet doctors. And so much of the information they're providing gives us just that. In this singular episode, what a gift.
And many women, all the symptoms will disappear and they'll be able to become fertile. And yet doctors do not learn. The average doctor is getting zero education in nutrition. And so they don't even see this. They reach the clomiphene, the metformin. The treatment that the OBGYNs are giving to these women is a diabetes drug. And they're not talking about blood sugar. You know, I started a company called Levels, which consumerizes access to a device called a continuous glucose monitor. There are so many women in our community who have PCOS, whose doctors who want to understand their blood sugar so that they can naturally heal their PCOS.
Yes, and have babies.
And these are not devices that they will give to, they'll only give it to late stage type 2 diabetics, even though we know that PCOS is insulin resistance, and that if we can monitor our blood sugar with this device and get our blood sugar under better control, it can absolutely set us up to sort of naturally heal. But it's not being talked about by the OBGYNs because doctors are not trained to see this.
This is everything, right? This connects everything.
Wow. This is the future of our species, right? This is fertility.
This topic, any woman dealing with infertility, this connects everything because the doctor doesn't know what case you just described. We talked to them. They don't know. They did not learn the physiology of why people actually get this condition.
Unbelievable.
And they eat what they kill. So what do they want more than anything? They want an IVF procedure.
Wow.
They want an invasive surgical procedure.
IVF.
Of course.
I mean, assisted reproductive technology is skyrocketing clinics all over the world.
From an economic perspective, it's a gold mine. If that woman goes on a keto diet, which is the best reversal technique for a PCOS ever studied.
Keto diet.
Weeks.
There it is. Keto diet.
They are robbing that doctor, just from an economic perspective, of tens of thousands of dollars for a gruesome invasive IVF procedure, which is a great procedure. But I think we all should agree, like that woman across the table would love to hear that there's a more natural way and just the correct way to reverse this condition, which, by the way,
there are big time downsides to IVF.
And not to mention, if the woman doesn't heal the underlying metabolic issues, it's going to portend issues for the baby too. Like not healing the root, even if you get pregnant with IVF, which is wonderful if that can happen, if you're not healing the root cause issues of the metabolic dysfunction, that's affecting the fetus and affecting the mom's future risk of disease. So by ignoring this, we're just continuing to put people on this treadmill. This is what happened to my mom. And I just want to be super clear. Like the picture of doctors here is very negative, but like, again, I just want to emphasize, like doctors are not doing this nefariously. Like there is just a systemic misunderstanding.
You can't classify them all as that. No way, shape, or form. There's a Hippocratic oath, and practicing medicine involves more than their indoctrination. And to the point you're continually doing the same thing to the detriment and not exploring. Like, I'm sorry. Like, arrogance, pride, ignorance. I'm sorry. We'll only go so far before we could definitively prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you, in fact, infringed on your Hippocratic oath, and it led to many suffering. Doctors need to take their position more serious as to the threat they, in their practice and their ignorance. You can't just hide behind your indoctrination. I'm sorry. No. And especially when it came to doctors pushing a bioweapon jab that wasn't FDA approved and that is killed millions of people and millions more suffering. And now infertility and so many other things. You're not immune to those type of errors. And depending on the level, like, so there must be accountability. We must clean house. Maybe through all of that and cleaning it all up, we will gain a system that builds back respect and other things. But my goodness, what a crazy time we live in, right?
Understanding. And there are many doctors who are waking up and teaching themselves these types of things, but it is still very fringe and small. And
well, their vacation houses are paid for by committing more interventions. They are
it's
highly
easy for me to
incentivized.
judge them because I don't know them.
Well,
but I just want to refer you back to your own life and the decisions you made.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be very hard for a lot of people. And you had advantages, as you've said. On the other hand, you're the only person I've ever met who's done that. And that's pretty discouraging. That's a pretty discouraging.
There is a tribe. I will say it's happening. There's a tribe. It's coming from the bottom up. This is functional medicine. You spoke with, Mark Hyman, for instance.
Yeah.
Like there are people, there is a movement. It's happening. And you look at what's happening in independent media. You're talking about this. Joe Rogan's talking about this. People care. People are listening and people are waking up. But
well, it's not a boutique issue.
No.
It's
No.
the numbers are
Americans
so
want to be healthy. That's the thing. Doctors are trained to think patients are non-compliant and lazy. That is not true.
People are flocking to
Americans want to be healthy, but the entire system's rigged.
Okay, so that leads me to my last topic that I hope we can get, and I hope you will be as personal and specific as you can be. What do you eat? No, I'm sorry. And don't be embarrassed. Like, because I think if anyone who's made it to this point in the conversation's like, this is a bigger deal than I realized it was. The consequences to me personally are the worst possible. Pancreatic cancer, Alzheimer's, there's nothing worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but you're absolutely right. Both of you made the point. Poor people are at a disadvantage. That's one liberal talking point. That's true. They are. This stuff's expensive. The only people I know who know anything about this are rich people, privileged people.
It's
people
weaponized against them.
I can tell that that's true. So, but even if you can afford, to buy.
We got to stop that. I mean, rich people, no, everyone needs to be educated on this. And we all have a role to play in getting that out there, as we've covered multiple times on this very episode. What do we do? What do we do? Well, share this podcast. Share. Blast it to the freaking moon. And in doing that, you're assisting the outcome for your future and your kids, because it's going to come across more ears. The sooner we really ramp this message up and get it out there, there's individuals out there that are sickly that will find a way out of that will provide more so the solutions than ones fighting against the system as we speak. Time is of the essence. We just gotta get things more. Why are freaking still cute cat videos going viral, or what? I actually don't know if they are, but obviously with a little bit of the involvement I got on TikTok, it's insane to me what trends, and this doesn't. Let's go. We can make it trend, and we must do that. Do I need to? Did I not do good enough jobs explaining it? I'm sorry if I didn't, but it's crucial.
Buy expensive food. Like, how do you do that? What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you eat? What don't you eat?
The number one thing that people need to understand is we need to stop eating ultra processed food. We need to stop eating.
So what is ultra processed? Can you just give like examples?
Absolutely. So ultra processed food is basically all the things that you're seeing at the grocery store that have this laundry list of ingredients that usually are based on 3 ingredients: ultra processed flour, ultra processed added sugars, and ultra processed seed oil. So this is going to be like white flour, cane sugar, and things like cottonseed oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil. So these crappy foods that did not exist 150 years ago, ultra fine white flour, added sugars and seed oils.
It's like all brand name
It's like
foods.
everything.
Yes.
I mean, we have a list in the book of what you should not eat, and it's basically everything at the grocery store. I mean, we should all be shopping at there are 9,000 farmers markets in the United States right now.
Yeah.
People can make the effort and reprioritize their values to focus on getting nutritious food. We need to be eating organic, unprocessed foods for the vast majority of our calories. And we need to get back to having a sense of pride and responsibility in our households to cook food. You know, one of the unintentional downsides of the feminist movement is that we somehow made people feel that food preparation was like a less than activity. I bought into this for my entire early professional life, that it was somehow beneath me. I was like a slave in the kitchen if I was cooking for husband or family. There is no more important thing we can be doing than feeding our children and our families healthy food.
Right.
But less than 30% of American families are eating together more than once per week. We need to be sitting down at the dinner table eating real, unprocessed food cooked with love at home. There is no way to drug ourselves out of the fact that, you know, we eat 40 to 70 metric tons of food in our lifetime. It's a lot of food, right? This is the molecular information that is building our bodies, building our brains, making our hormones, feeding our microbiome.
Ooh,
the food is what we are built of. And right now, 70% of it is trash made from a factory to addict us. Of course, we're sick. So that is number one. So to answer your question very specifically, I don't follow dietary dogma. I eat organic, unprocessed foods that I buy at the farmer's market, and I cook every single meal for my partner and I. And when I have children in the next few years, I am so deeply excited to cook every meal for them from scratch because there's nothing more important. And, you know, for people who can't necessarily get to a farmer's market, it's go to Costco.
Man, you are radical. I love it.
How is this radical?
It's not.
Isn't it wild?
What's radical? Yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people view, but what's radical is not taking this serious, not taking these steps. Like, it's more than radical. It's like delusional. It's stupid. We gotta take care of ourselves. It's like it'd be foolish not to change the oil in your truck, right? It'd be foolish to put sand in your gas tank versus actual refined gasoline. Like, and yet that's just proof as to how ingrained this indoctrination and poisoning of our minds and blindly entrusting, they've been so effective. And we got to break free from that box and see things. That's why they're ramping up censorship. That's why this episode can't not air on YouTube and so many platforms. And that just shows the uphill battle we got, but the opportunity we got in doing our part.
That this is radical.
It's such a total rejection at every level of the values of our society, which
and I had to wake up. I was so deep in this in my 20s. I cannot even tell you. Like, I was deep in the opposite of this. And so, you know, I believe that no one wants to be sick, you know, but the answer is on our fork. So I would say, to get very specific now, organic fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, meat, poultry, eggs, game meats, grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised.
What about cheese?
Cheese, dairy, but grass-fed, high-quality, organic. The molecular information in these factory.
To think high quality, it's just natural. It's not all the uber processed and jabbed and caged and kenneled, and it's just the high quality is natural. The same farmers, like the one faced MPA, they got like, well, health organization came through and shut everything down and put all the labels on things when everything he's doing is completely natural. But he's not following their regulations, their guidelines, which would in fact poison. And we got to stand up for those farmers. They're doing us a service. We've gotten so far away from what is actually healthy. And that's why I'm so excited. You know what? I thought I could make it through. I'm going to play and step out real quick because I've drank a lot during this episode, but enjoy this clip real quick. We just want to get through this because we don't want to withhold this information. This information must be magnified to whatever extent we can have, whatever impact. It is so crucial. And I'm just so grateful for every one of these individuals and sharing this. But I'll be right back.
Cow, these factory farmed cows that are jammed with antibiotics and hormones, that milk is not what you want to be drinking.
The problem isn't the milk, it's the quality.
It's the quality of the milk. Organic food has more nutrients than non-organic food. We need to be, so.
Is it hard to find? Like I love cheese, for example, cheese. So if I
it's at Costco now, grass-fed cheese.
Okay.
How wild is it that it's illegal to buy raw milk in this country?
Or if it's imported from Europe.
From Europe, yeah, because they're going to have much better.
They have Parmesan at Costco that's imported from Europe. It's fine that the lactose and all these allergies that have all just started in the past 30 years are because of the toxicity of the food, not the food itself. All these foods, anything that we ate, 10,000 years ago that we're evolutionary made to eat is generally fine. It's what's been done to the food. So pasture raised, which has just been beef for all of history up until like industrial
raising cows.
It's like that just means they're outside,
not getting poisoned,
raised as they know. They're eating grass. Now, most industrial farm meat, right? They're inside. They're have cortisol because they're so stressed, and they're eating GMO corn and soy. That impacts their biology. So actually, the factory farm meat has a much higher omega-6 content. Whereas ones eating grass outside are omega-3, much more omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6 is inflammatory, omega-3 is not. So actually, and again, we go through this in the book, but just being on a path of curiosity about this, eating food how it's meant to be made and meant to be raised, the actual biology and makeup of the food itself is different when it's factory farmed. So when you're eating a traditionally industrial raised meat, you're much more inflammatory items are going into your body. So you just always need to strive. That's why we do think, and there's problems with the organic designations, but as much as you can get away from the pesticides being spread on this food, as much as you can get to how the food has been raised, for all of history up until a couple, generations ago, because the way the food is manufactured and the stuff that is put on food is very corrupt. It's just not the case in other countries. So as much as you can get to how it's been made forever, the better. And that's why we say, and how if we were in charge of everything, I would fire and I truly mean this, I'm not joking, I'd fire every single nutrition scientist in the government. Ooh, I'd stop every single, all this complicated nutrition guidelines. The point of the USDA putting out thousands of studies literally and all this guidance is to confuse people because they're bought off by the food companies. I'd replace it with one guideline, is that we need to, as a public policy matter, reduce ultra-processed food consumption among children.
Where are you on sugar?
Well, yeah.
Sugar is, the amount of added sugar that we're eating in this country is astronomical. The average American is eating over 100 pounds of added sugar per year. In the 1800s, it was less than 5 pounds. So we're overwhelming our bodies with this material that is destroying our cellular health. Like all of that, the body has to do something with all of that sugar, right? And so the body is primed, knows how to turn sugar into energy. That's what the mitochondria does. That's what metabolic health is. Okay. But if you're putting on, 10, 20, 30 times the amount of sugar, this substrate for energy that the body has been used to doing or can handle, you're going to gum up the system. You're going to destroy the system. It's too much work for the body. So what happens? We get dysfunction, we get metabolic dysfunction, we get prediabetes and diabetes. And where does all that sugar go? Sugar gets converted to fat. Okay. And so that's why we're all getting so heavy, in part because of all this excess sugar we're eating that has to go somewhere. It's literally converted to fat in the body. And so it's astronomical. And 50% of Americans now have a blood sugar disorder.
This is back to ultra-processed food. Okay. Wow. So liquid sugar in the form of a Coke, right? You chug one Coke, that's like the sugar of, 15 oranges, right? And the oranges have the fiber. So you couldn't even physically eat all of the whole food, processed food, to get the sugar that's weaponized in those sugary drinks and all the things we're getting at Starbucks and all the things kids are drinking, even juice, which Michelle Obama is now supporting as sugar water, literally. She is now promoting sugar water for kids
because it's a better than soda option,
but it's still high in sugar. So So
Why is she doing that?
because she wants to make money.
Oh, so she's like a flack for some sugar company.
Oh, no. She partnered with a private equity company that specializes in junk food influencer partnerships.
Actually?
Oh, yeah. They're a private equity company that works on the Rocks energy drink and specializes in partnerships where high-level influencers partner to promote junk food.
Wow.
And she is the chief spokesperson and co-founder of Plezi, which is a sugar water for kids.
It has less sugar than soda.
Because
so
it's
they can
addictive.
advertise.
You can see we got our work cut out for us. There's big think tank. I mean, we're not even having these discussions. Like, we're afraid. Oh, so what? Because we all have that, individual just loves to rub, like, oh, I don't care. What? Like, we have to engage in these conversations. We have to engage in getting the information out there. We could, I don't know. Why is it that we tend to not care? Do we ourselves are so afflicted? I recently had a close friend just pass a kidney stone, and that triggered like a, whoa, I'm going to cut certain things out here. But once again, we are human. We go back to things. I believe he stayed pretty strong about cutting certain things out, and he's a healthy freaking individual, right? But why does it have to get to that point? I really feel it's because we're so diminished. We're not seeing clear. We're not thinking clear at all. If you could snap your fingers and feel like it's such a shift from where I was even before. Energy, focus, clarity, peace, everything. If folks snap their fingers, they would drop that stuff no problem. It's not even a sacrifice, because what you gain is far more valuable than that moment. And they literally are built to be addictive. So there's a level of overcoming that addiction and that craving, but there's strength in doing so. I've beat some of the most addictive substances on this planet, like smoking and chewing and drinking. Like, and it got to the point it was entirely addictive. I integrated alcohol into everything. But when we face ourselves and hold ourselves accountable and face that reflection, I love it, metaphorically even, facing that reflection in the mirror and being like essentially asking if you value this existence, in having that conversation with oneself on a real serious note. The path. That's why it was a weak yes, because for me and for a lot of individuals, yeah, I value this existence, kind of roll the eyes, kind of weak yes. But you know what that means. But what's crazy is you start going down that path, it becomes more a resounding yes. And you get more empowered and strengthened and excited. And we just need that type of momentum across the board. And we could achieve that together, folks. Let's do not be disheartened.
Advertise that it's better than juice or
It's sugar water.
Kids should be drinking water.
It's a safer cigarette.
And milk.
What if Michelle Obama said that? What if Michelle Obama endorsed water bottles?
Stop drinking sugar water.
Kids shouldn't be drinking sugar. Like the fact that the USDA and Michelle Obama can't say that. Michelle Obama was right in the first year talking about food, but she was directly bought off. She was directly influenced by the food companies. John Kerry, Teresa Hines, there was a lot of people that got to Michelle. This is well documented. And she shifted everything to exercise. And the exercise group that she then partnered with was actually funded by ultra-processed food companies. And she shifted all to exercise and totally stopped talking about food. And to exercise.
Anyone who's ever tried to lose weight knows that exercise is super important. It's good for you.
Food.
But you're not going to lose it. I mean,
the crazy thing about that Callie talked about the soda and how it's weaponized. I really want to drive that point home. high fructose corn syrup, which is what's in a lot of these drinks, was invented in the 1970s. This is a brand new substance. And the invention of high fructose corn syrup, which is subsidized by the government through commodity crop farm bill subsidies to corn. So it's basically, we're giving the soda companies this cheaper product, which is then turned into high fructose corn syrup. Something interesting about fructose that we learned from bears who hibernate is that aside from other calories that you eat them and they cue satiety, with fructose, it's a very interesting molecule. It's found in berries. And when you have an animal who needs to go into hibernation, they need to pack on fat in their body, right? So before hibernation, you have to load your body with fat. Yeah. So fructose, aside from other calories, different than other calories, actually does not cue satiety. It cues the feed-forward violence and aggression mechanism in that animal to basically outcompete all other animals to eat as many berries as possible in the fall to store fat, which is fructose, creates metabolic dysfunction, causes us to turn our sugar to fat, to basically store fat for winter. So soda companies know all this. So they put this molecule in the sodas that you're chugging, which is like Callie said, like 15 oranges and what the fructose you'd get in this. And it's causing kids to be insatiably hungry because essentially it's telling their brains that winter is coming, pack on the fat. But of course that winter
and the tobacco
is never
coming.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Whole foods are great. You know, anything that is a whole food that has not been broken into its constituent parts and made into a Franken food in a factory by a multinational corporation is a food that I'm going to eat. And the reason I choose organic or regenerative is because a berry just in a grocery store that's non-organic is going to have less nutrients in it than the berry that you buy from, a farm. These foods contain
not just less nutrients, but more than likely coated with poisonous like pesticides, things of that nature. I mean, Bill Gates even came out with a new coating appeal to preserve the shelf life of some of these things that doesn't come off and that actually has carcinogenic chemical compound to it. It's blah. Time to get back to good old natural.
Anti-cancer compounds. They contain tens of thousands of molecules, literally medicine that changes our gene expression. This is nutrigenomics. It all gets lost when you process the food.
And it's nothing short of gaslighting to, convince us that these tons of food we eat are kind of this like fringe science and these pills are the only thing that's serious science. I mean, these truly are medicine. I just say, Tucker, we get so confused, and this is a core point we try to drive home in the book, is that there's confusion by design. There's not an epidemic of people, I guarantee you, that are eating a 90% non-ultra processed food diet that have health epidemics. Like I don't care if you're carnivore or vegan, because if you're on that path of being curious for you and your family and taking that rebellion to actually cook and eat whole food, you're going to adjust. You're going to look at your blood tests and make certain it's different for everybody. But just as a public policy matter, as a spiritual matter in the country, we should be trying to engender more awe and curiosity about what we're putting on our bodies.
Yes,
and
that's right.
And I want to be clear to everyone watching, this is not about lecturing you or your family to eat any type of food. I'm making the point that there has really been something done to us. I don't think the American people are a lazy, suicidal population where everyone wants, 94% of the country wants to be.
That's such a smart point. The curiosity, I had a weird childhood with food. So I'm blaming my childhood, of course.
Of course.
I never really care about food.
Wow.
And I'll just, whatever's there, I'll eat it. Lowest common denominator type thing. I've always gotten fat every year, have to slow down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My wife, I've been with 40 years in September, same weight when I met her. She's really interested in food. She's not going to put something in her mouth that's not good for her. She knows what it is. She's always been this way since the mid 80s when I met her.
Wow. And
she's way healthier. And I feel my brother's the same way. Like they're interested in food.
Yeah.
Therefore they're pretty healthy actually. Yeah. And it's the lack of curiosity. Like I never think about it. It's just pizza. Pizza's good. Like that's what I know.
And the basic way to start with that curiosity is read labels, right? If there's ingredients on a package,
am I reading class?
Well, not to you, but like it's like it might be interesting for people to just look at labels, and if you cannot understand a word on that package, like what these ingredients are, if you can't visualize it, you probably shouldn't be putting.
What food do you think makes you feel best? Since we're talking about food, like what do you really enjoy eating when you eat it and you're like, I feel great. This is actually good for me. I can feel that it's good for me.
I've been thoroughly enjoying from, Inspire Farms. They have ground beef, where they in fact integrated the liver and the heart, so it's more nutritional packed. They just come in like 2-pound frozen packets, and I just cook all the 2 pounds at once, and that'll serve as 2 or 3 meals. And you can't overeat that stuff. You just eat till feels right. And oh man, it's been great. I like the point of the other gentleman. You really couldn't go wrong vegan, or I more so even like the carnivore, because I feel like you can actually more easily properly vet that food than this, vegan, but unless you grow your own garden type thing. But I love the carnivore in the sense of the elimination diet it has been. I noticed even this non-gluten trail mix I got just the other day. I was like, I really need, a in-between kind of snack. As I've integrated that, I've even noticed my skin hasn't been as good right there. Like my digestive hasn't quite been as good. So there's obviously certain things in there that aren't as agreeable. So it's like, okay, I'll delete that. And then I can maybe build out my own pack of more natural ingredients and know the impact it's having. And when it's a good impact, great. It's added to basically the list. And when it's not, boom, done with it. So elimination diet is freaking amazing. I love it.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the freshest possible foods that I know the farmer, and I got it from the farmer's market, and they're beautiful. And I think this is this sort of gaslighting. I think there's been this incredible dissociation. It's indoctrinated in us from childhood to not trust our intuition, right? Like to think we have to give our power away because we're dumb and we're not smart. And it's built into every level of the healthcare system. I mean, in many American states, patients don't even own their healthcare records because basically doctors don't trust patients in understanding that they can understand.
Legally, they don't
own them. Like the doctor or the hospital does, because we have so built in this idea that patients are not smart enough to understand their own health. So from and this even plays into HIPAA and all these laws about patient privacy. It's like, we have to sequester. Have you ever tried to get your healthcare records? It's impossible, right? Because I
don't know my own blood type, and I don't know anyone else who knows his own blood type.
That's
why
is
by design, right? Because if you can keep people
why would you know your blood type?
Because if you can keep people ignorant about their own health, then there's a power dynamic where you can sort of give them any solution. So this gets back to food, because I think a lot of this comes back to trusting our intuition. Every Sunday after I go to the farmer's market, I lay out all the food, the venison that came from, someone who owns a beautiful ranch outside of LA, the beautiful heirloom tomatoes that are colorful with purples, the watermelon radishes, and I lay it all out on my counter and literally pray with it. Like That's
awesome.
This is awe-inspiring to me. This is all the atoms and the molecules that over the next week or two are going to make up my cells. They are going to become me. I am going to take on the characteristics of this food.
True.
And I know, I look at that food, and if I stop and let myself trust my intuition, I know this food is healthy for me. I just know it.
Wow.
But we've been so divorced from our common sense by design.
Yeah.
There's no fat giraffes, right? They know, right? But we've been told that we can't understand. Every sixth grader in America can understand basic biology, metabolic health, and nutrition, but we have been told it's too complicated. Like Callie said, by design, confusion is the product. So to answer your question, what makes me feel good? It's the freshest, most beautiful foods that I have complete and utter awe for, because those molecules and atoms are going to go into my body. They're going to heal anything that's going wrong. They're going to change my gene expression. They're going to fortify my immune system. They're going to feed my microbiome, which makes 95% of my serotonin, which lets me think and have creative ideas and love my partner and all these things. It's going to be my partner and my bodies and my future children's bodies, right? And so I am in awe and reverence of food. And I think that I bless it because it's going to become me. And I think we need to get back to that appreciation.
Shouldn't the medical authorities, take policy side, what if our medical leaders started talking about this? We have a medical crisis.
I've never heard anybody talk like that.
We have a medical crisis. We have a medical crisis right now. And that is the science. That is following the science, right? And that should be the message from doctors. And Casey, I don't want to gloss over this. there's a metabolic health crisis among babies that are born. Mothers are passing metabolic dysfunction and essentially almost prediabetes onto kids en masse. That's how bad this has gotten.
Yeah.
Like kids are being born with dysfunctional microbiomes and metabolic dysfunction. And like, literally I've talked to Harvard doctors about that. I talked on one of the podcasts about this to a Harvard doctor. And she said that's a case for Ozempic, that babies are being born with such horrible metabolic dysfunction that we need to start jabbing them right away. I say that's a sign of a crisis.
Well,
and the fact that babies are being born sick is actually, maybe we shouldn't be doing more of the same and just keep drugging them more. We should actually be asking why there's a metabolic health crisis among babies.
Yeah, there's a crisis in the way that we think.
Yeah.
I think
it's a root of a lot of, I think, what's happening. The biggest societal, I think, historical dynamic of the past, decade has been this populist uprising towards institutions. I don't think people can quite put their finger on it all the time, but there's this frustration that we're being let down. To me, what's happening to our health and the gaslighting that's happening to our health, and the fact that we're not hearing things like this and hearing that drugs are our saviors and just keep doing more of the same from industries that are profiting from that sickness. To me, it is the number one example of what's fueling this populist frustration. Healthcare is the largest industry, and it's something that's these incentives, I think I would argue, are impacting Americans across the kitchen table and impacting their lives more than any other industry.
Can I just ask one last question?
Yeah.
So one of the things I noticed about both of you is your mental acuity. Obviously, you're smart, but it's more than just smart. You're sharp and fast, and you have very quick recall. You're just crisp. I notice the way people talk, obviously, because I talk for a living. How big enough bad food dulls you? I've always noticed that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for so many reasons, Tucker, but I mean, to name a couple of them, if you have a big blood sugar swing, which the average American, because the vast majority of our calories are coming from ultra processed food that turn into glucose in our bloodstream, blood sugar, right? When you have a big glucose spike and crash, that is associated with reduced fact recall. Literally that crash and spike, like the post-meal crash, like you eat something and then you might feel lethargic afterwards. That's in part because your blood sugar is skyrocketing and crashing. The average American child is probably on this roller coaster all day long. We want stable, steady blood sugar levels. So we're not
making
crashing.
Us dumber then.
So that's the short term, right? Over the long term, we're building the machine of the body out of shoddy materials, right? And that's going to impact our brains. It's going to impact our, the way that we think. And, our microbiome makes a lot of our neurotransmitters, and we are just trashing our microbiome now, right? With ultra processed food, no fiber feeds the microbiome. The 95% of Americans aren't getting enough fiber. So we're not feeding the thing inside of us that makes our neurotransmitters, that helps us think. This is insanity. And then we're trashing the microbiome with antibiotics, which destroy we're overusing antibiotics like crazy, which destroy our microbiome and increase our risk of depression and other issues.
3 times more suicidal than you're after taking them.
What? There is it's the all out warfare, and it makes you kind of step back and think like, what's happening here? Like we have this kind of like we're like doled out, dumb. I'm not saying the Americans. I'm saying that like it's making us.
Forces.
No, they effectively have dumbed us down, all of us, to an extent, on so many different levels. And it's not to take offense; it's to acknowledge the truth, so we can rise above it and not allow their systems to continually put us in that state.
It's reducing our IQs. It's making us lose our minds early with Alzheimer's. It's making our kids not able to sit down and learn because of ADHD and autism rates that are skyrocketing. And it's all going up all at once. And we know it's because of our toxic food systems and the chemicals in our environment. And we're not protecting kids. And that is very sinister. And I think, on the biggest macro level, like the kind of the most zoomed out spiritual level, like I think, what we have to realize is that like we are miracles. Like every human is a miracle. This life is a miracle. Like this is spiritual beings having this insane experience on planet Earth. And fundamentally, the thing that we're doing with metabolic health is we're making energy in the body, right? The way we're doing that is we're taking food that got its energy from the sun, right? Like the sun literally, photosynthesis happens, it creates starches in plants, and then we eat them or eat them. And what metabolism is taking the starches that are stored energy from the sun through photosynthesis, liberating it in our bodies to create energy to fuel our minds and to fuel our bodies so that we can think and reach our highest purpose. And right now, in the vast majority of Our toxic food system is blocking that process, which means it's blocking the miraculous process of essentially taking this beautiful, this is not woo-woo, this is just fact of science, taking this universal sun, light energy and liberating it to fuel our lives. That is broken. This is dark. This is very dark. Americans are not only sick, but the core process of being able to create, and transform energy is broken. And we need to fix this because we need all hands on deck right now in America to solve these big issues. And we need to be thinking properly, feeling good, and we can rapidly with some of these simple changes.
I don't think I can add to that. And as I said an hour ago, I do think you're going to change the world. I mean that. And this is the book. I never do this because it feels so grubby and commercial, but in this case, I mean it. Good energy. So, and that was good energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Such a freaking powerful episode. I love it. And that gal's like spiritually enlightened. She's in tune. She's connected with her food and this existence, this world. Like more traditionally speaking, we've been too removed from that. It makes me want to do better. And I've got multiple pages on this singular episode, and I hope to effectively apply it in my life to my betterment, but more importantly, to your betterment, that I can more effectively show up and serve you and continue, to come out with even better and better content. We so desperately need that in this life. Well, this was quite the marathon. We're going to trickle over 3 hours. Fancy that. Well, we'll see how this upload goes after the stream is ended. There's a couple powerful messages in these quick books I'll touch on, but just before I do, I want to express gratitude to our affiliations, because the reality of it is this has been a full-time job to show up on the front lines to this extent that I have with this platform. And I can't imagine doing anything else. But the reality of it is it hasn't entirely been paying the bills. More important than paying the bills, I know getting the message out there, it's all going to work out in time. Like, I don't want you to worry for me. But then again, there's people out there with means investing in putting money, even charitable and donations and things to dare I say, even some churches that it's like, wow, where's the transparency? Where's that money going to? Because the reality of it is, it's kind of sickening in my eyes that some pastors are literally taking millions of dollars salary and, just feeding off the people. It's like, my gosh, we're trying to, encompass even more than something like that. And, to the point that, jets, they got jets, and it's just, we need to be more efficient, even with our charitable. And if you found any value to what we're trying to achieve here, any little bit would be greatly appreciated. We do have a direct Venmo, Cash App link, even a GoFundMe if you want to drop in there. Any amounts would be so appreciated and needed at this point. Other than that, the affiliations is a good way of supporting us as well. Some more than others, but it's more about supporting these companies and creating the right momentum as well. Like, it's not about, it's more about the outcome than it is, obviously at some point we just need to be, I'm excited to get to the point, and I know through the grace of God, like, we will get to that point where there won't be this weight. And I look forward to the day, but I also look forward for the trials along the way as well. And it's all about our perspective, isn't it? But it's seizing the moment, whether challenging or not, with a positive perspective, right? So Patriot Mobile is a great call to action. They are the only Christian conservative mobile network out there. And once again, we've gotten some of the numbers, And I'm happy to report that a lot of our listeners have checked them out, have jumped over to them, and nothing but positive feedback. But not enough of us have taken that action. And it just makes me wonder as to why. It's kind of like, I believe we went over on this episode, kind of proves as to how diminished we've been. And we just keep putting things off and not taking action to our benefit. Why fund Verizon? Why fund T-Mobile when they're legitimately infringing like on your privacy? Like, and they're using your money against us. I mean, unless you directly want to fund the direction the country's currently going in, then keep that provider. But if you want to fund a provider that's fighting against your freedoms, pro-life, veterans, so many other things, click the link below, check out their webpage, see what they're all about, give them a call. Information isn't going to hurt you. The point you call, just simply mention Unmuzzled, and they'll waive fees. They'll take care of you. I'm very grateful for American Reserves. Talking about food, I don't know about you, but I'm really hungry now, and I can't wait to wrap things up and get some healthy food in my body. I love how spiritual she was on It Becomes Me. And that's the truth. We should literally visualize that. I mean, it kind of is like you are what you eat. But survival food, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you folks as to what's going to happen in the future, but I know there's just some things that are better to have. And we don't need to say the whole saying. But a 30-day supply, I feel, is a bare minimum. I think it would be wise to be sitting on a 3-month supply for everyone in your family. And they often run promos. And in addition to that promo on checkout, if you enter Unmuzzled, you'll get an additional 10% off. So see what they're running. Check them out. And I've been very pleased with the food I've eaten out of these totes or these bins or buckets. Excuse me. It's been very good. It's been very delicious. The next, I'm grateful for EMP Shield. I mean, I got one on my truck. I got one on my home. I have a lot of family and friends with them. And the peace of mind alone, holy smokes, for a few hundred and change, considering what it would, the level of protection it would provide your vehicle or your home or your solar investment for that amount, like up front, it's just a no-brainer, folks. Do not be left in a position where you're freaking stranded and you have to leave all your other investments behind. It is crucial we get prepared to a degree. And anyone that could budget that in, click the link below. You could get $50 off every single product they offer. This is a Pray shirt from Stand Up Now. If you want to embody the Stand Up Now, click on the link below. You get 10% off through the link there. Just mention Unmuzzled and checkout. But if you want an Unmuzzled Chat t-shirt exclusively, that's through Black Eagle Apparel. You get 10% off mentioning Unmuzzled Chat through them. But you still get a spin the wheel option. So you could get upwards of 50% off an already really well-priced tee and get freedom merch. Guys, check them out. We need to embody that. Let's go. All right. So the 1-minute prayers, we got communication. We just shifted out of silence into communication. Oh, I imagine there's going to be some good ones. Okay. We all know this. If you can't say anything nice, come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking lies. Wow. Wow. Psalm 34, 11 through 13. The prayer reads, bite your tongue. That is what my mother used to tell me to do when it kind of reads like stories sometimes, not even so much a prayer. But that is what my mother used to tell me to do when a lie or mean comment was about to slip out of my mouth. God, you offer me the same advice, and I would be wise to heed it. I believe also that when I am struggling to hold back an unnecessary dig or sarcastic comment, I should look for something good to say at the moment. Yeah, sometimes just to count to 10, I mean, 20, and take a walk. All right, let's see. In the moment, something righteous and sincere. Lord, okay, I should look for something good to say in the moment, something righteous and sincere. Lord, direct my tongue to share the good news. And when that does not surface easily in the heat of the moment, let me fall silent and spend my energy listening for your direction and await your peace. Amen. That is very wise. Why continue to sow discord? It's so much of the initial responses is stemming from pride and ego and defective wiring, and we can all. That's why nutrition and things is so freaking important. The more we master that, right, the better we're just gonna be able to handle all these moments. Okay, we got August 21st from the Jesus Calling. Wait with me for a while. I have much to tell you. You are walking along the path I have chosen for you. It is both a privilege and a perilous way, experiencing my glorious presence and heralding that reality to others. Sometimes you feel presumptuous to be carrying out such an assignment. Do not worry about what other people think of you. Yeah, you just got to kick that in the face. I am full of flaws and errors and trip up and stumble all the time. It's, well, why would we care? The work I am doing in you is hidden at first, but and eventually blossom will burst forth. An abundant fruit will be born. Stay on the path of life with me. Trust me wholeheartedly, letting my spirit fill you with joy and peace. Amen. That's beautiful. There's two biblical references. I challenge you to check them out. We got 1 Kings 8:23 and Galatians 5:22-23. Oh, there was something I felt like embellishing on, like I felt impressed to say regarding all of that. Oh, it's slipping my mind. It just kind of came back. Isn't that weird? Talk about human flaws and more growth. But that bugs me. I'm so sorry. It's like if this was a regular episode, I could take all the time and edit out the blank space, but yeah, we shouldn't worry. I mean, we're visiting here. Why worry? Oh, I think that was my point. Because there's a lot of effective kind of CIA driven MK Ultra tactic where people in these weaponization of words of racist and bigot and you know them all. We don't need to go through all the toxic. I shouldn't even. I don't even want to voice that with my tongue. But the reality, I'm not fearful of anyone calling me any of those things. It doesn't make me it. but we shouldn't be afraid to speak out on truth just because someone's been weaponized, and let that sink in. So I challenge all of us to embody being unmuzzled and standing up now and doing our part. Thank you so much for supporting what we're doing here and seeing what we're trying to achieve and create more momentum. If you want to be a part of the podcast and share your story, share your testimony, share your struggles and successes, or anything, just reach out to unmuzzledchat@gmail.com. Otherwise, smash that like button, drop comments, share this to the moon. We must get this information out. It very well would lead to saving lives. God bless you. God bless America. Until next time, take care.